I don't think we have any.
Don't have any tonight.
New business, old business, public access, and adjournment. So moving right into the line item budget, the first budget to consider tonight is the education budget. And we have the superintendent, and I always forget what the title of your money person is.
Director of Business and Finance.
Director of Business and Finance.
And we saw, we'll move up here, we met a number of you during public hearings, but for those of you that were not able to make it, Kristen Leo is our Director of Business and Finance. We're very excited to have her with us. So this is her year of shadowing, and next year she's going to take the front stage.
Mr. Chairman, I have just three quick points that
You are the man.
are stage setting, if I might.
Yes.
The committee will be reminded that the local school committee and the regional school committee each has its own finance committee. It's called the Budget Subcommittee in each case, and they are very rigorous activities to go through, I know firsthand, and it is important to appreciate that the budget coming here has been vetted by the budget subcommittees and, of course, the public hearings. Second, the committee will be reminded of school choice, a program that is optional district by district. Burgess in Union 61 does not participate. Tantascwa does. School choice is a program by which a student in any given district that participates can, on a space available basis only, attend an out-of-district school. For example, a student living in East Brookfield, just to pick a community, could attend Tantascwa, but only on a space available basis. There's no denying anything in the experience of a Tantascwa local student when a school choice student participates. The interesting part about that is twofold. In the history of Tantascwa's participation in school choice, it has invariably made a net gain. And the second is invariably with a zero corresponding incremental increase in cost. It is found money and is supportive of capital and other efforts, and is an emblem of the widely recognized quality of the Tantascwa education. Third, as a reminder to the committee, the state sets the rules for budgeting, and they call that the foundation budget. Every school has one. And in the case of Burgess, 83% of the dollars this committee will look at have been assigned and are spoken for and required by the state. Really, the discussion becomes the other 17%. And that's for Burgess, and it's 85%. 83 for Burgess, 85 for Tantascwa. And I have learned from the superintendent that if a school district decides to go below the foundation budget, everybody witnesses magic as the state support begins to evaporate. And who do you think is going to win that staring contest? A neighboring school district, for many reasons, not least foundation spending or non-spending, is now in its eighth year of receivership. The superintendent comes out from Boston. The school committee gets to say the Pledge of Allegiance. That's all they can do. So we here tonight are, of course, obligated to be prepared for the annual and special town meetings by being able to answer any question from any voter. Please keep in mind that the focus of our discussion, though, is set by the framework provided by the Commonwealth. And with that, if the chair will allow it, The floor goes to the superintendent and the director, please.
Sure. I'm happy to kind of maybe just do some opening general, what's happening this year and next year, and then any specific questions, we are ready for firing away. Kind of piggyback on Larry's opening statement is, while he certainly talks about the foundation budget and the state set budget, we sit here very appreciative that we have more than that minimum budget. We have a number of communities around us that struggle, and that's all they get every year is whatever the bare minimum the state says is. We run somewhere between 15 and 20% over. The state average is actually close to 20. We've got this kind of a little bit funky situation with our region not being K through 12, so the region is working the way it's supposed to. It allows us to have some consolidation and do things that you might not if you had your own standalone high school. Allows us to keep costs down for some things. So the region, we tend to have less over the foundation budget than the elementary. But we are very appreciative of the fact that this community has always supported a good chunk over minimum contribution. So we certainly say that year after year and can't say it enough. We've got this, for Sturbridge, I think we're going into a pretty good year from a budget perspective. We've certainly, those of you who have been here for a while know that last year or the last couple of years, we've struggled with a few things. We've struggled with increases due to out-of-district special ed tuitions. We've had this ESSER funding cliff that we have been trying desperately not to have. That's another thing we are thankful for. We are not sitting in a place that many of our peer school districts are, where they've got a cliff, because for the last 2 to 3 years, they have been funding things with those federal COVID-related emergency funds, and now all around us, there are lots of cuts happening because of that cliff. I think we did a pretty good job of not building a significant cliff from this is 3 years ago, 4 years ago. We very consciously said we definitely need some staff to help get us through and try and stabilize. I will not say that we are as stable as anyone thought we were going to be 3 years later, but we did a balance of some important salaried positions and some things. Technology increases in improvements to your HVAC systems, so one-time purchases. And over the last couple of years, we've talked about usually one position a year at Burgess we've tried to get back into the budget if we thought it was important enough that we were going to worry if the cliff came. So we're in a great position where there are no positions that we needed to get into Burgess's budget, and there was one small support staff position that we really felt important enough on the Tantascwa end to keep. So I think that helped us be where we are right now, where our ask to you is under 3% for Burgess and under 2% overall for Tantascwa, which I hope is appreciated. I feel really good seeing those numbers. I've got a couple of other Tantascwa member towns not in as good shape. It is primarily the elementary. There are a couple of elementary districts going through what Sturbridge went through last year and the year before, with some increases in out-of-district tuitions. So overall, I'm feeling pretty good this budget season compared to some of my peers. So knock on wood. What the state does is still yet to be seen final, but steps 1 and 2 at least leave us all to believe Sturbridge will be getting a good, I think, a 9% increase in Chapter 70. So that's driven off of Burgess's enrollment, which the enrollment itself is up in numbers. And as I'm sure you're all aware, the makeup within those numbers are up. There's an increase in lower income population, which drives your Chapter 70 formula, as well as English learners and special needs. So all of those are factored into that foundation budget, which is what resulted in Burgess Sturbridge getting an increase in Chapter 70. So that on top of a lower than last year for sure. Budget increase hopefully is going to help Sturbridge.
What is the student population?
So let me give you some total numbers, because I did think, I've never really presented to you guys, added them, but, so total, what we're looking at next year to support for Sturbridge students in town between your three schools is 1667. So 1,667 Sturbridge students in totality next year.
So how much in Burgess?
Burgess, about 900. That includes preschool all the way up through grade 6. Preschool, you don't get Chapter 70 funding for unless they're special needs, because preschool at this point in time is not legally required unless they have special needs, then we need to serve them, and then we open up for any others. So 900 about for elementary, 750, 760 for the secondary 6th grades. Other little numbers that usually come up and still come into play for sure is that the special ed population that we can't serve in district. So we've got 1667 in the 3 buildings from Sturbridge, a total of 38 students, ages technically could be 4 years old through 22, that are in placements that we simply just can't serve the students within our 4 walls, so to speak. We, for some of these students, did our best to keep them for quite a while, and at some point in time, they get to a point where their needs are more than we can give them. Or safety comes into play, because some of the students, they get older, they get a little more dysregulated, they get more physical, and we get to a point sometimes where try as we hard to keep them here and with their peers, we cannot. That 38 is about 2.2% of your overall Sturbridge student population. We all know that unfortunately it creates a pretty large number for dollars. So those 38 students next year will cost us about $1.9 million, which is a huge number. When we calculate that all out, it's on average $50,000 a student. One of those is a $250,000 residential placement. Others are smaller when we have our in-district special ed programs, or we use the collaboratives. So we think we continue to keep them pretty tight, because those 38, by the way, include any Union 61 programs. So we've got 38 students totally, not in the regular day school, being tuitioned out in a sub-separate program. That program might physically be in Burgess, Brookfield, or Brimfield for the elementaries, and then elsewhere.
We have special ed teachers that service outside the 38, right? So
Oh, absolutely.
there's certain like minimal needs, or, they can, okay.
Absolutely. Every building has a full staff of special ed teachers based on the number of students with individual education plans or 504 accommodation needs. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, yep. So special ed continues certainly to drive statewide. It is, we continue to struggle with how to best serve these students in the most cost-effective way.
Is special ed part of the foundation budget? Is part of the formula? Okay.
Yes.
So we can't say that of the 2.3 million, that's the 17% of the budget that isn't foundation, is 1.9
Yeah.
is special ed?
Yeah, no. So that you definitely, based on their individual ed plans and classifications, do get more money for special ed. The foundation budget does give a little bit more for out-of-district placements, and then there's that circuit breaker. So that is the separate fund that every year we're always lobbying our legislators to make sure they fully fund the circuit breaker formula, which allows for us to get, there's a threshold. The threshold's pretty high. It's any tuition that's over, it's $60,000 to $70,000 at this point. Anything over that, circuit breaker says 75% of the cost would be reimbursed to us. So first we have, here we're trying to keep things as low cost as possible, work with our collaborative placements. So it's only those really expensive out-of-district placements that are subject to circuit breaker. We want them to fund. They've done a good job the last few years of funding the full 75%. If you'll all remember, the challenge we had a year or two ago is it's a reimbursement. We've got to pay year one and then finally get it back year two. We're sitting here at 2s and 3% because it's finally all caught up. So yay. So we definitely will be getting a good amount of circuit breaker money next year based on this year's placements, which will be able to go towards next year's budget. And we reduce that before we come to you with the budget. So that, I think, has certainly come into play and leveled out nicely. The ESSER cliff is minimal to nothing, which we're very thankful for support in the past, and pat ourselves on the back a little bit for good planning. The struggles that we're really dealing with, we continue to kind of keep our eye on the special needs placement, but special needs is set aside. Mental health is not special ed. It's not defined, but it is a problem. It is certainly causing a lot of absenteeism. We've got chronic absenteeism, which is a statewide issue. I certainly, again, am happy that our local numbers, all of our principals feel their absenteeism is far excessive to what it used to be and what they want it to be, but yet our numbers are still lower than the state average. So a lot of our time and effort is looking at how we can make sure that we can re-engage students and get them in despite whatever they're dealing with for school avoidance. That is a challenge. Transportation is really one of the biggest issues that we have that has not leveled off or rebound from pre-pandemic. And that is the national crisis in bus drivers, truck drivers, CDL population. Bus drivers, we still struggle getting. It's not just Sturbridge, it's even all of, if you've probably seen a number of news of schools having a hard time meeting their transportation needs. I've seen a few articles which kind of does tie with us. I think that population has historically been a lot of retirees. And then when the pandemic came, many of those retirees tapped out. So we have had a hard time finding replacements. We've had tighter runs this year, but at the same time, the Sturbridge in-house, it's absolutely far more cost-effective to run in-house. It's a lot of work. I wish it wasn't as effective as it is to run in-house, but we continue to do so. We're planning on continuing that. That group did unionize this year, so it's interesting because when you look at the budget, there should be a significant increase. The other four towns, there's a significant increase in the transportation cost this year because their outside vendor went out to bid. It is what it is. It was a huge jump. I would have anticipated, because of union negotiations and some of the new requirements, that the cost would be higher in all of your budgets. It's not, only because I'm not going to budget for 16 runs when I currently have 13, and I'll be thrilled if I can get one more to build back. So that's what's happened over the last few years, is we used to run 16 runs. We've lost staff, lost drivers, not been able to replace up and down to the point that we're currently running 13. So when we built the budget, I certainly said, well, I'd love to be back at 16. I don't think we're going to be there next year. So we budgeted one more in hopes of building back a little bit, but that is still a work in progress. And that's not just the large buses, that's the smaller. Again, we have that in-house special ed transportation. It's a lot of money, but it is still significantly less than if we're calling vendors to do the special ed with the minibuses or the minivans. That's a number that, for those that are new, is always fascinating to see how huge that number is. I will remind you, when you're looking at the elementary budget, those out-of-district tuitions and the transportation for special needs is for every Sturbridge student ages 2.9 to 22. is in the elementary budget. So even if they're a secondary age student that is placed someplace and transported someplace, the cost of that is sitting in the elementary budget. So that does skew things. Again, it's hard sometimes to compare us apples to other districts. It's that way for when you think through, way back when the region was just 7 through 12, each town wanted to make sure that they're only going to be paying their share of their student needs for special ed, as opposed to putting it in the full budget, dividing out by minimum contribution and then shares, and then ultimately some towns could be paying for students when they have none at all. So that does, it's a little more difficult to remember, and it's a little nuanced to the elementary budget. So that being said, we look at the elementary budget and we see $850,000 for special ed transportation, and that looks like about as much as the all else. And in reality, what else is happening is that's covering secondary as well as primary. Although I have a number of peer districts that the transportation for that population can cost almost as much as the transportation for the 1,600 students, because it's specialized, because it's an individual van going daily out to Framingham or Northampton, or some of our placements are even in Connecticut. But we do try to consolidate, and having that in-house fleet has helped save. It's sometimes a tough pill to swallow and believe that we're actually saving when that number is that big. But that has come into play and continues to. So we're hoping next year some of those challenges will decline, but those are really the biggest issues we've got going on. Otherwise, we're doing our best to continue maintain. I wouldn't necessarily say we're in steps forward. I think there are certainly programs that we would love to put into place, a little extra staffing in some places, but we need to stabilize before we can have those conversations. What other hot topics have I missed?
The only thing I can think of that is in Sturbridge is one of the host towns for some of the people who've been bussed up here, the migrants. Has that been
Yes.
a big issue in the
Yep.
schools?
So, putting aside all of the hullabaloo at the beginning of the year, we did what we needed to do.
Right.
We did what we should do and what we needed to do. We know that there was primarily one facility that has housed families. So first of all, part of the chunk of the increase in Chapter 70 is because some, not all of those families were English learners.
Right.
So that creates more funding. About half, maybe a little bit more than half of those families and students just before April vacation were actually relocated, consolidated elsewhere in the state. They are, I think it's public, so they moved to a now state-run facility in Auburn.
Okay.
There probably wasn't room for all of them, I don't know. All I know is they went to Auburn. Again, they were placed here first, they were homeless to begin with, but their first placement was here, which triggered the McKinney-Vento, which said they have the legal obligation to continue to be educated here if they choose. All of them did. Who would not? First of all, Burgess is awesome. Secondly, it's so close to the end of the school year. To consider enrolling someplace else certainly is not in the best interest of the kids and parents. That left us with the need to split the cost of transporting them here every day with Auburn. But we did receive state funding this year that will pay for that. So I'm not worried about the financial implications of that at all. And then we wait and see, what happens next year or the rest of the families. I think Burgess did a fantastic job of supporting. Their high point was 36 newly placed, and again, I want to clarify, 36 state emergency homeless place students. We had always had English learner students. We've always had homeless students. We've always had homeless students living in some of our hotels. There was this large infusion coming a week before school opened that really caused us some challenges, but we came through them well. On the Tantasqua end, there was, at max, there were 6 students between both buildings. So this is really the younger elementary age population. And we've still got a majority of those that we had back then, even though about half of them now aren't living there.
A question. So you said that the state and Burgess split the cost of transportation?
So the McKinney-Vento law, which is a federal law,
Yeah.
requires if someone becomes homeless and ends up needing to be placed in another community, from an educational perspective, they have a choice of enrolling school in that community or continuing where they have been. But the law says if they choose to stay where they are, the new community and the original community will split the cost of transportation. So however it works out, whether it's, in our case, we have the ability to look at transportation and had some in-house ability to do it and do it cheaper. But Auburn's paying half the cost.
I was just thinking more along the lines of school choice, but that's a whole
Yeah,
different.
very different.
Very different.
Yep.
Mike, you had a question?
So, couple of questions, let's start with the Burgess side. And let's just round the Burgess budget to $14 million for discussion. That budget, and you talked about Chapter 70 monies coming into the town.
Yep.
The $14 million expenditure is independent of how much we get in Chapter 70 monies, correct?
Yeah, so it's the same as, Chapter 70 is a revenue to go towards it. So we're asking for a $14 million budget. Of the $14 million budget, 11 million and change, you have got to spend. That's what Larry was referring to. So I see foundation budget for next year is 11.5. Of that 11.5, Chapter 70 is part of that. So the state's saying, I'm giving you, and I forget the amount, is probably around 5 million. Based on formulas that we're not going to
5.2,
debate
yeah.
right now, but based on the state's calculating a formula, they say Sturbridge is gonna get 5 million of that 11 from the state, and the rest needs to come from the local community.
And if the amount of money from the state is 5.2 or 4.7, some number different than what you're using for budget purposes, the $14 million total budget still stays the same.
Correct.
And so, and so that Chapter 70 money is really, maybe this is for Barbara, a revenue stream that comes into the general fund,
Yep.
separate from the expenditure that
Yep.
goes out. If it's higher or lower, that kind of impacts what we have for
Absolutely.
cash in the end. Okay.
I will, because of that, to clarify that, it's interesting because we have the joy of going to 5 town meetings and sit there with 2 to 3 line items that are school-based. So you're gonna go into a town meeting where I'm hoping you're gonna have an elementary budget number of 13 million, I think, right? We're looking at 13,895? And an operational budget for Tantasqua of 8,301,719.
8332.
8332.
Is that number changed?
Is that a lower number? We'll take that.
Yeah, exactly.
I have 8301. You have it?
In our budget, I have
Oh, you don't have the assessments.
8332847.
You don't have the
I don't have the
assessments.
assessments.
I'm gonna take a quick peek at that.
Oh, wait, you sent that out as an email not too long ago.
Yeah, 'cause we also sent the formal assessment letters that would have the total, so we could confirm that.
You can look at-
But my point is, we're usually sitting there with those 2 lines. Now, those who don't know municipal finance would sit there and think, oh, it's costing us $13 million to educate our elementary kids and only $8 million to educate our share of the secondary. What's missing is, as you were saying, the region acts as a town. So the region has the exact same thing. You're sitting here saying, all of Sturbridge budget request is here, and then I'm gonna subtract all the revenues I have before I say, now how much do I need from my taxpayers? Tantasco's done the same thing. They started with a $23 million budget, and they subtract all the revenues, including Chapter 70 money, to get to what is left to ask for the taxpayers / the towns. So that 8 million is after a share of Chapter 70 money that's gone to Tantasco on Sturbridge's behalf.
To that, my second question. So to wrap up the Burgess one, that's more or less a pay as expended. So the costs for operating that command, Barbara pays those out. We pay them out up to the $14 million number.
Yep.
If you only need to spend 13.8 of the 14.
That stays with Sturbridge. And
That stays in here,
Goes to your-
that's
goes to your
expenditure,
free
doesn't get
cash.
paid out and goes into free cash.
Yep.
If I take that over to the Tantascwa side, it's its own financial entity over there, so you're forecasting Chapter 90, if it's more or less, that stays in the pool of money over there. We pay our assessment regardless of how much your expenditures are relative
Yep.
to your budget.
Yep.
So I take it from that Tantascwa has its own version of free cash that
Yes.
it's sitting there?
I cannot tell you why or who decided to complicate things and not call it the same, but for regions, free cash is called E&D, excess and deficiency.
And how high is that budget for Tantascwa?
It legally can't go more than 5%. So when you look at financially, and this year was 1.1 million of E&D. Now of that, just like you folks have a conversation every year as to whether you should put some of your free cash toward the operating budget to lower the tax rate, the school committee at Tantascwa says, should we put some of that 1.1 million E&D towards the budget to lower the assessments, which they have for the last few years, 350,000. And that is in this year's budget.
Just to confirm, so
Yeah,
I
what number do you have?
I have your letter dated March 25th.
Yep.
And the town of Sturbridge total assessment is $8,382,987, but the operating costs are $8,301,719, and the transportation costs are $81,268.
Yes.
That's the third
Yep.
line in the budget.
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Yep.
So it is a lower number, it is not the number that's in
Yep.
our
Yep.
book. Okay.
Okay. And that's
So we'll have
where
to-
we landed.
The motion will have to reflect a different number, is what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay. Okay, my questions are answered for now, thank you.
I just got, well, first I looked at the historical budget change, it's good, you're keeping it in line, because the budget is 3.5% over 5 years, and consumer price index is 3.96, we're actually spending below inflation, which on its face is good. Sometimes I think, budgets can go a couple of different ways, we always talk about cost cutting, right, that's kind of what, but I was looking at, a couple of studies, and I saw, if you look at student-teacher ratio, you have Tantasco at 9-1, the regional is 13-1, and Burgess is 12-1. And then I look at the math and reading proficiencies, and Tantasco is like 80 and 82, and then Burgess is 47-63. So my question is, and then I've seen studies, and you guys are experts, I'm just a I'm a pretender, right? But where it's more proficient and effective on a lower level to have a lower ratio than in the high school level. So my question is that being that you're spending less than inflation, the scores, by the way, all of them are excellent, by the way, which is good because you're educating students, and it's not bad for property values either, obviously, right? But my question is why is one, 9-1 and one is 13 and 12-1? Should we redistribute funds to get at the different levels?
So here, again, unfortunately, the ratios are, you've got to peel a lot more to the onion to look at them all. So which school is 9-1?
That's the high school, which we would think as they get older, they need less, not more.
Yeah, so you've got a couple of things happening at the high school. And again, I don't know which numbers you looked at or which study, because caution too, when you're looking at data,
I'll leave it
there are
with you.
2 high schools in that one building.
Okay.
There's Tantasco Regional High School and there's Tantasco Technical regional high school. When MCAS data comes out, they are two separate sets of MCAS data. So I'm not sure if you were looking at the total, you probably were looking at the total. It's a lot easier at the elementary school to have this consistent, and in reality, a ratio of 12 to 1 is not what the average elementary child has. Our average regular classroom sizes are 18 to 20. But you've got those special ed classes, and you've got specialists, and those are all what they're really doing is they're taking the total number of students divided by the total number of teachers.
Right.
So when you've got all of those specials, you've got art, you've got music, you've got PE, you've got these specialized classes. Some of these special ed classes have 4 students
Which would
in them
which would
because they
reduce
are
the ratio.
so severely, they need that almost 1-to-1.
Yeah, but that would
So
reduce the
that-
ratio, not increase it, right? Because
Yeah, and we have the special needs classrooms also in the junior high and the senior high. Then the high school has those electives, so that's where things, we can guarantee, I can tell you, your core English, math, social studies, and science classes have the average of more like 25, but then you've got electives, and you've got some of those classes will have only 10 or 12, depending on what the choices were. So it's kind of a moving target, and then if you factor in the technical division, those have got safety issues. You can't have 25 students in the carpentry classes. Actually, I don't think there's any of the tech shops that you can have much over 13 or 15. You might be able to get 15 in your CAD classes. So,
like Mike said, I'm not saying, like, we always get less, and we always want to do more with less, but again,
Yeah.
if you go into overall rating, and this is US News and World Report, Tantascwa High School is rated 92.79, the regional is 79, and Burgess is 70. Massachusetts rank, Tantascwa High School is 50, regionals 104, and Burgess, once again, is 288. If I was just looking at these numbers by the
Yep.
numbers, I'd say, do we need to put more resources in Burgess, or what's going on? Because they're the low end on every one that the
Yep.
independent study's doing. So I'm saying, why,
you really have to peel into it, and I'm pretty sure those, if it's the USA News, they're probably looking at just the academic school and not pulling in everything that's happening in the tech division. But again, we feel like we certainly could use a bit more staff, but we're not asking for it yet.
No, because there's other studies like Niche who actually does, that the realtors use,
So-
and the findings are roughly the same, so, it's important that, if you need more.
Yep.
Or we want to redistribute it,
Yep.
let's not do rote and say, hey, I saved you 2%. Is that good or bad? I don't know. It may be great, it may be terrible.
And I've
It's a
tried
meaning
for
thing.
many, many years to truly ask for what we truly need, to at least continue the level of services or improve if there are problem areas. And I appreciate that when we ask, if we need to ask occasionally for something new, we've gotten the support. So we appreciate that. We think we're in good shape because over the last 2 to 3 years, there have been 1 or 2 positions at Burgess that have been added in, and we kept them, and a few at Tantascwa. I think there was just 1 ultimately that we decided we really didn't need to continue with that, and that is the right conversation to say, now we're 3 years out, do we really need that? No, we need to keep going here.
I think we talked at the larger meeting the other night. and
Yep.
So what's your measurements then? Overall, I know you had some really good measurements for the high school, which were impressive. So what's your measurement as far as we spent so much money, what are we getting? Is it going
Yeah.
this way, or that way?
And again, we'd have to have conversations about measurements. We try not to only measure MCAS. Our MCAS are certainly above state average. I want them to be more above state average, but we keep an eye on that. Then we could keep an eye on our graduation rate is always 97, 98%. As I said, our attendance or our chronic absenteeism is a problem, but not near the problem that it is statewide. So those are the things we're looking for at this point.
Jim, you had a question?
Just a quick one. I wanted to just tie into what Mike said. So the students that relocated to Charlton, to Auburn and were allowed to continue in Sturbridge. That ends at the end of this academic
I
year.
believe legally a year out that they could still be making the same,
We could have them through 12 grades.
as long as they are still considered homeless. Now, some folks who were here have moved into a home, have moved into what is their residence. I think as long as they are in that state-run shelter, they'd be considered homeless, but they are working with finding employment and transportation. And a number of those that we got to know as they moved here have found employment, and a few of them residences. So, but I believe the law says as long as they are considered homeless for at least a year, we still have to
So, but if they find a home in Auburn, they don't get school choice to come to.
correct. Well, especially Burgess, as Larry has said. Again, there are other elementary schools in our district that they could say, we'd like to stay school choice. They do just like Tantascwa. Every elementary school looks at an enrollment every year. They look at their residential enrollment, they look grade by grade and say, what grades could we accept some school choice slots? You've got your really small rural schools. Burgess at least kind of has this steady population that gives you class sizes of 18 to, I don't think we've been much over 22.
Or it hasn't really changed population in 28 years.
Right. So, well, again, it hasn't a lot. We can change maybe 10, 20
Right.
in a year.
It averages
The-
890 pretty much the whole way.
Right. The littler towns, a 10 or 20 student shift in a year would significantly shift. We've got some that has one class per grade, a number that has two, and one with three. But there are class sizes in one of the elementary schools that range from 12 to 20, or 1 year pushed through a class size of 30, because that's what they had to do. We're usually pretty steady at that, 18 to 22. Sturbridge, just before the pandemic, had just started declining enrollment, and it's inching back up. It's recovered and then moved forward. So that decline, which is still happening a little bit in most of the other towns, isn't happening in Sturbridge.
I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. Is the majority of this money, let's say for Burgess, the 13, 14 million, is, that includes the salaries of the so, and that is pretty much, from what I understand, out of our hands because that's a union
Well,
contract?
it's out of your hands. It's not really out of my.
Well, I'm sorry.
Right. No, but when we, no, you're right. When we are building a budget, if the contracts are settled, the contracts are settled. Yes, if you didn't support it, and it usually 75% of school budgets are salaries.
Okay, all right.
And 95 to 96% of the salaries are a part of a bargaining unit.
Okay.
I have 50, no, the bus drivers made it 16. So across all of my districts, I have 16 contracts. Burgess alone has 2.
Okay.
Tantascwa has 5 for various different assistant administrators. That's right, Burgess now has 3. Oh, so Sturbridge has 3. So, yeah, your way of control, again, if the town can't support, we have a contract that we have to pay salaries. If we don't get enough to pay all those salaries, then we're looking at cutting positions.
Oh, no, I totally understand, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying the bulk of this
Oh,
number.
sure. The
is
far
pretty
majority,
much
unfortunately, the far
what has
majority of the
been-
school budgets every year are salary, and those are contractual.
She might not have that data.
We got
just
a
over
public
9.
hearing,
Wasn't
just
on the
detailed breakdown, so I'll give you
Oh, the
mine
summary
if
that
you want
breaks
to take
out
a look at
salaries.
it.
Yeah.
Just
She
over
she
9.
wasn't on the committee at that point
Okay,
in time. Yeah.
welcome.
I think we recently benefited from a transition from senior teachers retiring and younger ones coming in.
Yeah.
Is that still impacting it
Yeah,
positively?
and definitely that you have 2 elementary school
I might have
retirements
it.
that certainly help keep this
She said
down.
just send
Because
it
that is
to her.
absolutely our practice is,
paper
when
copy
someone
so I
is
can share with you. I don't have
retiring, we
electronic.
plan and budget
Yeah,
to
neither
get
do I.
someone in at fairly entry level. You get to the high school level, and sometimes you have to have the conversations depending on what the specialty area is. Really hard to get a chemistry or a calculus
get Larry to
teacher.
make a motion.
So if it's a math or science,
Yeah.
we might say, we're not going to get an entry-level replacement, let's go a little higher. If it's English or social studies, we're likely to say entry-level and be able to save a little money.
That's good. And you're finding enough teachers out there that?
We are.
Good.
All right. I think we're in a good shape. So Larry, just for your purposes, the new number is 22,278,614 for all of education. So it's $36,128 less than what we have in the line item budget.
22,678,
22,278,614.
thank you.
This is my last summary printout. Okay, that's a rounding thing.
Good, thank you.
That usually doesn't happen, does it?
Nope.
It's a, it's 20, okay.
But I have to say, and also in credit to Deb and all of her people there, it is an incredibly rare occurrence that they need to come back for additional funds. Usually they have these numbers down pat and they live within them. So it,
I think twice in my 23 years, I think twice we ran into, and both really for the same reasons, the unexpected audit district, and one of them on town meeting night, we were through, because we got close to the end of the year and said, no, we can do this, we can get through. So we certainly do our best to keep it as tight as we can.
You do. I recall that one. Kathy and I were up there meeting with you and your colleagues in early November. You were already farsighted, and as it turned out, it was sort of a false alarm, but who knew at the time? You acted, I think, properly by conducting matters as if they were real, because they had all the earmarks of reality. And so the district was set. Things worked. You may remember, we were up
I
there.
mean, I was on both school committees for
Yeah, hang on.
20-some
Right,
years.
right.
I think we only came back once. I want, in that time period.
Yeah.
so,
It's very seldom, yeah.
so Larry, I need to adjust that number because I did miss charter school transportation in the thing, so that's $5,000 we
So
need
that's
to
your
add
total,
to it.
but not, you're right, you've got.
So
and I don't even know what you
283?
get billed for that.
So what number?
It would be now 22,283,614. When I was doing the calculation, I missed out that one
For
particular
total
line.
education.
Yeah, for total education. Mhm.
Is that your motion, Larry?
You mind reader, you. So moved.
Okay. Do I have a, Jim seconds? All right, so it's 22,283,614. Larry, Jim Waddick. Any
you
other
both.
questions,
Well, we haven't had a
comments?
vote yet.
Give it to the-
Seeing none, all those in favor? 8-0.
What's these studies?
Thank you very much for coming and attending and answering our
Happy to.
questions.
Happy to.
Thank you.
And I will, if not beforehand, we'll see you folks in
And she
June.
breaks it down.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good luck with the rest of the process.
Oh, thank you.
Big part of it's already done.
All right,
52%.
Right. I have a copy.
so the next, and Mike, it's going to be you running this, is the town planner.
So Jean was unable to come tonight, and Lee was the liaison for both Jean and Recreation. And so I was over there and had a chance to chat with both of them today, and I'll step in as the liaison here. So town planner, I'm going to work off of the detailed budget on page D12. There are no material changes to this budget. From a staffing level, it's still, Jean is the planner, and the staff position there at 35 hours. So that just reflects, current step and grade and so forth, wages for that position. No material changes in the purchase of services or supply contract. The only thing that may stand out on that page is the, in the purchase of services, $5,250 for the near map We have a town GIS system. Jean coordinates that through her office. Multiple departments kind of use that for various purposes. There is a piece of aerial mapping that is part of that package that is used. But there's a different version out there that gives higher clarity, better resolution, and that increased resolution and capabilities can assist on some public safety use of that GIS system with that map, helps conservation do some field reviews without necessarily having to get out in the field. They can have better resolution. So that's just a matter of upgrading one of the underlying tools as part of that well-used GIS system.
Oh, I was going to say, so I might not know this, but it's just another layer within our GIS system. That's
Or
more-
it substitutes the existing aerial mapping with something with better resolution and clarity in it. That provides, maybe some improved efficiencies and capabilities of folks who can do some more desktop activities versus field stuff with a higher resolution.
Page B2 has just the general overview, but of course, might give a lot more detail.
What's that?
I said, page B2.
D as in,
No, B is in
No, no,
boy.
no.
oh,
B, if you
is
read
in
it.
boy, too. I was just saying, you're
Okay.
talking about town planner.
Yep.
It just kind of gives an overview. You gave a lot more details, but it gives kind of an overview of what the request was.
So with that, can answer, if there are questions, we can answer those, but I would make a recommendation that we recommend that town meeting approve the town planner line item budget at $236,761.
Do I have a second?
Second.
That's Kathy. All right, questions?
The only question I have is, and maybe, as far as salaries are concerned, it seems like they went up like 6.8%. A lot of the rest of the budget, is this because of a catch-up scenario? Are we trying to, is there some reason why the salary went up higher, or,
I'm going to have to defer to Robin.
Robin, is that a?
There was an increase in the salary for the assistant in that department.
Okay, and that's just kind of a catch-up thing and?
Well,
keep
that's
up?
a step and grade thing, and when you get the
They gotta
steps
promote it?
along with whatever.
Okay.
That.
17%.
There was also an increase for the position. There
Okay,
was a small increase in
Outside of the grid?
17%.
Yes, well, outside of the normal step, she received an increase.
Why? Is it a performance
Frankly,
thing?
we were going to lose her. She was offered another job, and the department head feels very strongly that she's a valuable asset. I agree that she's a valuable asset, and we made a decision to counter offer, not quite as much as she was being offered, but we, at this point, just didn't feel we could lose a person like that.
It's fair.
Well, yeah, I just wanted, why we went outside the grid line, so we can explain it.
I typically don't like to, but sometimes kind of in a tough spot. It's very hard to recruit and keep people right now and to be competitive. I'm fighting an uphill battle against higher salaries. Not that we don't pay well, but other organizations, municipal and regional organizations, tend to pay a lot of money, the regionals, and that's really hard for us to compete with.
Okay, Jim, you had a question?
Well, I have a question, but this might not be the appropriate time, because this ties into warrant Article 9, where there's going to be a part-time housing coordinator that reports to Jean for $140,000 approximately. So maybe someone, to see if we'll appropriate $140,300.
Yeah, so let me, 146 is not just for the coordinator. There's funding, seed funding money to go into the housing trust with that. That part-time coordinator is going to start out at 10 hours a week, could grow to 15 if they get some momentum and start adding some value in there. But that's coming out of CPC funds that we haven't
I
spent a lot of
understand
money
that,
on.
that's why I didn't finish my question. I want to know if we're going to address that tonight with Jean, we're going to address it with CPC when they talk about, we consider this warrant article. And the other thing this ties into is, there was previously, where we were setting aside for a consultant in that capacity, $25,000 a year. Does that go away now, and this is replaced and displaced by the $140,000 that we're describing in Article 9? I'd just like to know, If we got two balls in the air now, or
It's up
this
to
is going to
Kevin. If he
assume
wants to
that
take
one.
that article up, we can do it. The housing consultant was to kind of get this thing started, that this coordinator will kind of build off of that. It's not a recurring $25,000
But
position.
there was
for
a
the-
different position as a consultant before this year.
If I could,
Go ahead, Robin.
Sure.
yeah, so the consultant actually was brought on to get the whole housing plan going. We are continuing and making an effort to continue. We're having actually a hard time finding a consultant to still help us continue to grow those plans and define those plans. The part-time coordinator position is just that we actually, through the consultant, have come up with some pretty concrete plans, and we need assistance implementing them. That's what that consultant is. I do want to point out that the other thing Janae has picked up is assisting Jean in that as well. And even when we get the consultant, housing and the coordination of all that will fall with Janae, as well as Janae doing historic district. She has picked that up too. So I just, as a follow-up on the other question, she has taken on a bit more in conjunction with that increase. But to your question, we will probably try to do the consultant for one more round. And then the
didn't catch the end of that.
coordinator part-time will keep. I will tell you, we looked at different options and for ways to hire that part-time position. And we could have gone through like CMRPC, but they were going to charge an outrageous hourly rate, and we were going to get like 7-8 hours for the person, or 9 or 10 hours for double the price. It was crazy. So we decided we would try to find someone part-time that would actually be housed with us for that part-time person that's in reference. But again, that whole 146 is not for the part-time. That's the seed money to also go into the fund to be to become part of these programs.
So I guess my question remains, is there going to be a part-time consultant as it has been up to this point, in addition to this person that's going to be in the coordinator position? Are there going to be two people?
Yes, we have funding for a consultant this current year. We've actually gone out for proposals and we haven't gotten anybody. But yes, we need one more round of the consultant.
Okay.
Probably that would be it at this point, after this one round. And then we will have the part-time person to implement these programs.
But there isn't another warrant article this year as there was last year for this $25,000?
No,
That's the
but
answer.
we still have that money that we're looking to spend now, currently.
So
We
there's
just
a
haven't
single
gotten, it's hard to get people to do
$25,000
it.
for the
The
consultant.
consultants that do this are all overwhelmed.
Yep. Single article for the 25,000 last year. They still have funding available to bring that person on to kind of help give us the framework. The coordinator will then say, there's a whole bunch of other things in addition to creating this framework, and it's really implementing that framework.
I understand, Mike, what triggered the question was I didn't see it on this year's and it was on last year's, because I always look at last year compared to this year and see what's lining up, and it didn't line up, that's why I asked the question.
Makes sense.
I wasn't being nefarious, I was just trying to get it.
All right. So I have a first and a second on the town planner budget at $236,761. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? All right, 8-0. So, wait, hang on, Mike, just, do we want to take up Article 9, or do we want to wait? The CPC is supposed to be here next week to go over their articles, but this is the housing one that we seem to have the explanation for tonight.
In case someone has a question next week, let's do them all together, I would suggest.
Okay. Fair enough.
That way there'll be
I
someone-
mean, I am on the housing trust, so you
Oh,
have.
there you go,
questions.
okay.
And we have the CPC vote. It was supportive of that, so.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking to really start moving, and that is why they want to hire that part-time person, as well as keep the consultant on, but it was just gonna be way too much for Jean's office to really handle that, really start getting, plans in place and really spending the money for
In
different programs.
principle, I'm totally in favor of something like that. We were having a discussion about
Yeah.
that's something we haven't been spending enough
Right,
attention on.
no, and we did consider,
I want to take that when we get to the town meeting articles. We can do that there.
Well, we've usually been doing the two together at the same time. But you're here for both. It's not like the department head sitting in front of me, so, Okay.
Well, I'm not opposed to covering, I just thought we could do them all at
No,
once.
that's fine. Zoning Board of Appeals.
I was just going to pick up the article then.
Oh, are you?
Anybody have any
Okay.
objection to acting on that article and
I
getting it off
don't.
the plate tonight?
No.
It's right here.
So again, Let me find which one it is.
Article 9.
Oh, weird.
9, housing preservation. Last year, there was the article that came forward to kind of, identify who the trust members would be and how they get appointed, and I think Robin was just coming to town there. She put together, the members of that. That finally has gotten some traction here, and they've come forward with this $140,000 request. Again, it's a 10 to 15 hour position to kind of help get some momentum going and focus on advancing things forward. It provides for some costs for, administrative things, hearing notices, mailings, stuff in case issues come up and they have to deal with some administrative related costs. And it does provide $100,000 more or less of seed money to go into the housing trust versus keeping CPC funds. So that if they have something that comes forward and they want to move forward, there's at least a base that they can go there. I will point out that it doesn't mean they can freely spend it. They still need a vote. If they want to spend money towards a project that comes up, they need the trust to take a vote on that one. And I believe they have to come to the Board of Selectmen as well to spend some of that money. So there are some controls on how that money gets spent. So with that, I would make a motion that Finance Committee recommend that town meeting approve Article 9 as written.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jim? Any further questions or comments?
The only question I have is, it looks like it's, request is from the Community Preservation Fund, Community Housing Fund. Does that actually have money in it already
Oh, my
that this
God,
is
yeah.
coming from? Okay.
Wait, it's in our book from last year. Can I just steal that? It's in the CPC report, which gives me, Barbara, while I look this up, will you be delivering the CPC report by next week?
Yep, that's my goal.
Okay. I'm looking for where it is. It's usually in the back here.
That's fine. That was just my basic question. That's coming from, like, we have the free cash and we have
Oh,
these
here it
funds.
is.
It's coming
I'm sorry.
from and not additional.
So community housing at the end of, coming into this fiscal year, $1,222,847.
Okay,
Thank you, Mike.
thank you.
So again, CPC funds, that extra 1% that's on your tax bill, it comes in, there's some state matching money. Some of it is undesignated, some of it goes, percentage of it go to one of the three categories, and the undesignated can supplement some of the others as well.
Okay.
What, did we break out, maybe I missed that, sorry, did we break out what the cost of the hiring a part-time housing coordinator, what's that out of the 140?
Yeah, I can give you that information. The coordinator is $31,200. The administrative costs are $9,191. And to fund the Affordable Housing Trust account is $100,000.
Okay.
Okay. So any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed and abstaining. So it's 7 to 0 to 1 with Kathy abstaining.
Because I'm on that committee.
Right. But I think we need to note that, in the
Yes.
minutes. Yeah. Okay, so ZBA.
So I'm gonna go to ZBA, I'll talk off of, the detailed budget, D13. Level funded budget, it provides, $500,000, for conference-related fees, should some of the members go to a conference, as well as $90 in the travel reimbursement, to cover any costs, should they go to, a conference during the year. No changes in that one, so I would make a motion that we recommend that town meeting approve the zoning board of appeals line item budget in the amount of $590.
Second by Jim. Jim Waddick. Any other discussions or questions? All those in favor? And that's 8-0. All right, so recreation. All right.
Recreation, okay.
I believe we have recreation on the phone.
Danny should be dialing in, but I'll give the summary for her.
Oh, there you go. She's right there.
I got to find the page.
Yeah.
37. I didn't turn it off. So in the recreation, the budget, on the salaries and wages, there is an increase in staffing here. What they're doing is picking up 2 part-time staff members for the summer rec program. I believe it's 8 weeks there to get the staffing for that summer rec program to meet the minimum staffing levels for camping type facilities over there. Again, that's to, you know, keep that program moving along. There's about 260 people using it last year. That's meet minimum staffing levels and, you know, helps with safety and execution of the plan. Other than that, the only other changes noted in that budget, the mosquito and tick treatments for the fields, that was not in last year's budget, but in the prior year budget, and a replacement gate over at the tennis courts to help getting access from the shaded side and so forth. But other than that, it becomes a level funded budget.
Okay. So you have a motion there, Mike?
And then I would make a recommendation that I would make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend town meeting approve the recreation line item budget in the amount of $155,386.
It's 536.
536?
Yeah.
I have 155,536.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Yes, okay.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right.
It didn't look like that when I first looked at it, sorry.
That's okay. Any questions or comments?
Who was the second?
Jim?
Okay.
The only comment I'm gonna have is it basically represents a, 14.7% increase. That's pretty hefty. There's reasons for it and the like, but all I'm saying, that's a pretty hefty number, most of which obviously is the personnel or salaries. A lot.
All right, then. Any other questions or comments? All right. All those in favor? And opposed? There's seeing none. It's 8-0. Okay, so before we go to running away from recreation, there is a lot of recreation in the betterment article. So that's Article 18. And so I just, want to take that up. I think she's the last department. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Trails has got some in there as well. But everything else is, then we might be able to take this one up as well. Is it on tonight? It is. Okay. So my only question is the Little League scoreboard at the town barn field. Is that like electronic, mechanical, hand run? What are we getting?
So
Go ahead.
Sorry, the screen just went weird. I can't see the individuals, but I'm hoping that it's my turn to speak on this.
Can you get a little closer to your mic if possible? You're just a little quiet in the room.
How is that, Kevin?
That's better. Thank you.
Awesome. So this scoreboard is to replace the existing one down at the field. The one that we're replacing was actually purchased in 2011 when the tornado quite literally took ours away. So it was a temporary, rather cheap replacement at the time. It's the electronic one that is fixed to the concessions building that we have down there. Our league is wonderful in terms of they've kept this running by actually attaching an antenna from a kid's toy truck in order to keep it going the last several years. But it's really, it's not usable, it's crashing during games, it's very very not dependent. Hopes would be potentially to see if there's a way to kind of keep having this Fluke one be a little bit of work done and transferred to Turner's Field, but we're at the point now where it's decreased so much in its dependability the past year that we're not positive. For the Little League itself, though, this quote is the purchase of the scoreboard, but it also includes the installation.
And it's permanently installed then there?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And I believe the remainder of the recreational stuff that's in Betterment Committee is the
Pretty
typical
straightforward.
annual request that kind of comes through.
Yep, no, that was the only one that was out of the ordinary, yes.
Can I ask a question about that, though?
Go ahead.
Is there a similar scoreboard for the softball fields?
I don't know if you heard that, Annie.
Yes, so each year, what we do with Betterment, you might be noticing a pattern now. In order to limit our requests, because at our meetings, we'll see, police or fire. Other years, we've stepped back on kind of valuing what's more important, what's less important. So each year, each field in rotation has been getting one upgrade. So previously, the softball field has gotten the bleachers and the sunshade installations. Last year was the Turner's Field fencing. Betterment has also supported adding the dugouts that we had made there, the bleachers made there. So in rotation, each field has been getting one upgrade per year through Betterment.
All right, any other questions related to Betterment?
Okay.
I think that takes care of recreation. So, thank you, Annie, for your time.
Well, before Annie goes, though, if you have any questions regarding the revolving fund increase for funding for her, we should do that while she's here.
Sure. Thank you for reminding me of that one. That is Article
Sure.
27. That is going, this is money that comes in, and they can spend up to this maximum level, the money that they're taking in their programs, and then the rest would end up in the general fund. Right? No.
Yes.
Oh, no, I think it stays in the revolving fund.
No, that is not correct. So they can take money in, that limit is how much they can actually spend in a
Right.
given year.
But the money stays in that revolving fund.
It does.
Yes,
But
that's where I was
They could
wrong.
collect more, they could take in more than the limit, they just
Right.
can't spend it.
Correct. Yeah.
And I seem to recall in reading some, in the document we have in the budget, that Annie had planned or has several new things that she wants to, programs that you want to undertake this year. I thought I read that. Is that correct, Annie?
It's correct. Currently, our biggest struggle would be at our current offerings. We are already at our maximum authorization. So an example for this year, we were not able to host the bus trip over spring vacation. We're not hosting the public CPR classes due to the constraint on what we can spend. So we're always exploring, and we'd love to bring in new opportunities, but right now we are at our maximum for our current offerings.
Okay, so this will give you some wiggle room.
Correct.
All right, can I just ball this a second? Just
And
curious.
Barbara, just to clarify, if the amount of money coming into the budget exceeds in this case, the $50,000 request, the increment stays in there and that fund continues to build. If we only collect $49,000, we're still authorizing the expenditure of $50,000, assuming there's $1,000 left over from last year, right?
Right, so there's always money that carries from year to year.
There's 29,000 according to that.
Okay. And you want to take advantage of some of the programs that are on here? The bonfire is Saturday at 5 to 9 over on the Common.
Okay.
Which in the last several gets a pretty good turnout, so.
Good stuff going on.
Everything else on there is pretty straightforward. Farmers market's farmers market.
But that's not recreation related with Annie. Yeah.
Nope, I think we're all done with recreation.
Thanks, Annie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annie.
Okay.
Thank you, Annie.
Just one thing, Barbara or Robin, I would add into your IT budget for next year is maybe to get little tiny speakers to go in front of each seat up here so we don't have to strain to hear what your comments are.
Or maybe get them better speakers so it comes through on the one in the back.
Or, yeah, bigger. I know the problem is they can't go too loud because it feeds back. So maybe if there's something here, it just, sometimes it's very difficult to hear people. You know, and the funny part is if you ever watch it online, you can hear them beautifully. It's like you've never heard, they come great through the television. You can't hear them in here. Wow. So Tom, you're here for Trails? Sure. That's next. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully you killed a lot of angry birds.
You could make a case of this.
He doesn't, yeah, all right.
Okay.
So I know there's the actual line item budget for Trails, and then there's two CPC articles related to Trails, which are on our schedule as G and H. I'd have to go back and tell you what the actual numbers are. They're going to be in the beginning. Okay. Budget.
C12.
Housing. Okay, where the heck are they? Oh, Article 7
Is this
and Article 6. All right. All right. How are the trails going?
Trails are going great. Tom Chamberlain, member of the Trails Committee. I see some new faces on the board, so welcome to town government.
Thank you.
Our line item is very traditional, as it has been, just funds so that we can send members of the Trail Committee, and there are 10 members on the Trail Committee. We like to send a number of them to the annual State Trails Conference, and so that's what these fundings, and actually we're asking to send one more, because we do have 3 new members on the committee, so, you know, it's a good, it's a 3-day event usually held here in the state somewhere, so it's just local transportation and the registration fees.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, is there a liaison for this, or no?
I think I'm the liaison, because I think it was going to be Sean, but Sean has left us as well. So
We're just looking to see who wants to make. the
I will make the motion that we recommend to the town meeting the budget of $500 for the Trails Committee.
I second that.
Okay? KS and MCP.
That's a tight budget.
All right, any other questions for Tom related to the line item budget?
I applaud it. Anytime you can send people out and learn more and pick up some tips, that's great. We should be doing more of it. More and
Thank
more.
you. We try.
Okay. All those in favor? So that's 8-0. Great. So we also have, like I said, Article 6, 7, and then he also has some items in Article 18, which is betterment.
Right, yep.
So let's go to 6, and we'll just take them right in order. Gotta scroll back.
And Article 6 is,
The, that's their general trails property improvements coming from the
Okay.
CPC, $66,000.
yep, okay.
What are we getting?
So, this is one of our kind of standard requests out of community preservation. This keeps basically our volunteers supplied with the materials that we use to improve our trail system, to develop and improve it, and getting into maintenance of those trails that we've already, you know, built and constructed. Some of our oldest trails have been around now approaching 15, 16, 17 years old. So some of the gravel to keep it ADA compliant is wearing out, and that needs to be replaced. You know, the signs are now that old, and so they get faded, and we don't want people getting lost on our trails, so we try to keep the signs and everything. The good news is usually our vandalism is extremely minimal. We only lose 1 or 2 signs a year to what we could really call vandalism. So knock on wood, that's, I think there's a good amount of ownership, obviously, of the community to our system. So basically what this is buying is, we try to contract every year with the Student Conservation Association to work on some of our more remote single-track trails. And they have, since post-COVID, their costs have greatly increased to a point where it's now at $13,000 for the crew of 5 for a 10-day period. We're asking for it for this next year, but when we looked at this, the members of the committee are saying, is there a cheaper way for what they do for us and what we get from it? So we're not comfortable with, where the direction that program is going, but unfortunately, those are the, rates set by that. For those of you who don't know what the Student Conservation Association is, it's a national organization. I kind of equate it to a Peace Corps in the United States. So they hire college-age students, and they train them in our case, for trails. And they travel. Massachusetts brings in several of these 5-person crews, and towns and the state uses them a lot. The DCR uses them a lot to maintain trails on their properties, the Appalachian Trail and a very number of trails. And we get a chance to get a crew, depending on how many they hire, and their ranks have been kind of, suffered from COVID, whatever. So they're still rebuilding the program, and one of the things they found is, they just need to pay those kids more than what they've been paying them. And so those costs are increasing. So, but we hire them, obviously, at college students. We can get them to get out more into the boondocks. As you know, the Lead Mine Mountain property is close to 1,000 acres. So, getting out into the middle of that property and the more remote trails, we can't get our equipment in there, so they're moving rocks to, if there's a wet spot or a wet area, they can bring in some flat rocks that you can walk across so you keep your feet dry, that kind of stuff, and that's the work they do for us. So that's the program.
I'm sorry, do you assign them these tasks, or do they go out, look at the things, and then say, this needs to be done? And
it's actually an application, so we have to detail in not specific terms, but in general terms what the project will be. In the past, they've built 3-foot wide footbridges, and so they've had to carry all of that material, into the woods, and then, set the rock foundations and build the bridge out in the woods. Others, they've shelved in and actually constructed trails. So it's all handwork. The trail is 2.5 feet wide, and usually they're what we call in the trail business full bench cut, which means if you got a hillside, they're cut in so that the trail tread is on original ground, not where you filled it. That tends to slough off and not be a sustainable trail. So, they do that kind of, manual labor that obviously someone my age just wouldn't want to get into, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, Long Pond, we're slowly developing that, so we're asking for $2,500 to furnish the lumber and materials so we can have the high school carpentry class build a kiosk, and then money for gravel, another $2,500 for gravel to start bringing the main trail up to our trail standards per our master plan. Fisk Hill, we've gotten the parking lot finally constructed, and we actually started last December before winter shut down too bad on us. We were able to get in the first couple 100 feet of the trail. Now, that we're asking for, let's see here, $6,250 for gravel, $10,000 for equipment rental of an excavator, a mini excavator or a skid steer, and then we're anticipating going before the Conservation Commission for wetlands permit to install at least one bridge to keep us moving on the trail We're currently just working on parts of the property that are outside of conservation jurisdiction, which isn't very much, but but that's where we're at. But we're anticipating that we're going to get to a point this year, as we go into next year, to need a bridge. So we're looking for that. Additional of that is another 23,000 total of just all of our other properties. Some of our bridges, like I said, are approaching, they were originally built. We were using donated materials. Back then, we weren't taking advantage of community preservation funds as we are today. So we, had people donate materials. Some of that material was not pressure treated. So that material is now at an age where we need to replace it. So we're going for bridge replacement materials, additional trail gravel, equipment rental. Occasionally, we just need to bring in a specialized piece of equipment to, move a section of trail or just haul some stuff in. And then our general maintenance of signs, signposts, paint, and the other miscellaneous, screws and bolts and things that we need. So that brings us to the total of the 66,000. So it's like it's a shopping list of stuff. Like I said, that basically, keeps our volunteers going in maintaining everything.
How much was it last year?
Be honest with you, I don't recall that number.
This is obviously ongoing, this is not a.
Yeah, this
Some of
is.
it is, some of it's not, but the more trails you build, the more continuous maintenance we're gonna have, right?
In the end, yeah. But again, we try to build our trails the first time right and sustainably we do have a trails master plan that sets out how to build we have 5 different levels of trail. And so we build to that master plan and try to maintain it. Our trails are, if you didn't know, our trails are all universally accessible, which means that none of our trails have steps or water bars. So one of our challenges is when we look at a piece of property that may have been logged many years and there's logging roads, and you say, oh, great, that's a trail. Well, if it's not set on the property properly, we reconfigure that particular section of trail so we don't need to install water bars or steps. All of our bridges are ramped so that, again, even all of our out in the most remote sections of the trail, there are no steps. Everything is ramped, so it's accessible if a person chooses to exercise that way. And there are actually a couple things we're looking at in other grants. Is we're looking at purchasing some of that more specialty accessible equipment. As we're going to look at grants to buy it, but we're going to see, we're looking into it. But we want to encourage everybody to get out there and use our trails. So,
So last year, Article 9, $45,000, the wording was different, for creating, improving trails, creating signage, but I think it's a comparable article, it's about $45,000.
yeah, again, off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I just don't remember the number. So.
Seem to recall we did a lot of work over at the Plimpton property too last year.
We did some there. We're to the point where we need to get some wetland approvals, and we're working on that as we speak to make the filings and move forward on that. Okay.
Does this fall into any operating budget, or is it always gonna be an article every year?
No, it would come out, it's coming out of the CPC fund, so the CPC voted to authorize to expend the funds they control to support this
Okay,
project.
so all I'm doing is pulling it out of what they budgeted for, and, okay.
But
We're
it's,
approving it twice?
everyone's paying the CPC.
Yeah, you pay it.
1% into the taxes that go to that fund, they're
Right.
paying it out. Yes, this is an annual expenditure. Trails are nice, everyone
Oh, yeah.
is rah trails, but there's ongoing maintenance, especially as you build these out.
Yep.
And as I say every year, that number would be a lot bigger if you didn't have the volunteers to do the labor and the work behind it. If you actually had to hire staff or bring in contractors to pay them labor part to do these maintenances, the cost of these trails is gonna go up, so.
Yeah.
It's not free, but that's where people want to
You know,
spend their CPC
again, the
funds. It's
13,000
appropriate
for the SCA
expenditure.
this year, that's for next year. This year, we're paying 12,000, and last year in the budget, I think we asked at 9. We got kind of caught with our pants down a little bit, but because we didn't, this is one article that allows us
Yep.
to move funds, we were able to cover it. Okay, but again, so it's gone up, about $4,000 in the last 2 years. And like I said, that's why we're taking a look at, we'd anticipate a small increase, but they kind of jumped it up. So, the committees, that kind of perked everybody's ears up and said, wow, that much this year, And there is a value. Obviously, we're using them. They provide a good quality service for us. We work with them. And they do good work. It's just, where
But if you had to
we're
go
at
out-
in the world today.
You're gonna get the volunteers to do the work? I think the answer is no. You're farming out the stuff that is
That-
beyond the means and capabilities you volunteer.
Most of our
for.
local volunteers.
If you didn't
Yep.
use the $13,000 expensive group this year, you'd hire a landscaper or another small, light-duty construction contractor, and it'll cost you more than 13 grand, I bet, to get the same amount of work. So you're still getting value for what you do.
Oh, no, there's still a value, don't get me wrong. It's just, we all want to be careful of our money.
That's
too,
right, and indirectly, by the way, a positive thing is if people come from outside Sturbridge, use the trail, use the restaurants, get gas, there's probably an indirect benefit to it that you can't put a number on it, obviously, but it's there somewhere, you think. Hopefully it's more, hopefully it's
There is.
66,000.
We had unique visitors where we have counters. I believe the number was 66,000 people used our trails last year, in the calendar year '23. So, and that's counting, it's an infrared counter system we have, that when you walk by it, it clicks, it counts. So, if you walk in on a trail and you walk back out on the trail, on the same trail, it will count you twice, and we account for that in the system, in the numbers. And we don't have counters on all of our trails. These are just at the major trails out of our parking lots. So, and yes, if you do visit our parking lots, you will see a lot of out-of-state plates. Okay?
And just for information purposes, the undesignated fund balance, according to the report after last year's annual town meeting, $1,364,373.
We have enough money, huh?
Oh, yeah.
It was in every year.
I have a couple of questions, if I can.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
How many miles of trails do we have now?
We have, running them through my head here, somewhere in the neighborhood, right around 33 miles
Wow.
of trail.
And what's planned?
Well, we have a recreational trails master plan that was accepted and adopted by the town back in 2012. It was updated in 2019 or 2020. But in those plans we brought in professional trail builders, businesses that make their living building trails and working with trail committees and developing trails. And in that plan, it kind of set a goal of 50 miles of trail for Sturbridge to truly become a weekend destination for people looking for trails. It takes that kind of number to, bring them in like for a weekend period. Okay, so right now, we are getting a lot of daytime, single-day trippers. But, again, the industry says you got to get to that 50-mile because they want to go riding on trails for 2 days, like, say, if you're on mountain bikes. So you kind of need that higher mileage to say, yeah, okay, we can go riding for 2 days because there's that kind of mileage in town to do. So,
Not to derail Mike's questions, but the mileage that you count of actual trails, does that include Westville, Wells State Park, trails by other agencies within town, but not owned by the town?
Yeah, that number includes what we work with our partners to calculate, right. Okay, but obviously, of that mileage, a good percentage of that, we're probably around 25 of that is actual town trails. And the rest is our partners, like the part of the Grand Trunk Trail is, some of it's on core property, some of it's on our property, but at the end of the day, when that's fully built, it'll be 6.5 miles long. Okay, so those numbers are in there somewhere, but we still are, we have other trails projected to be built. And as we acquire new properties, obviously, we look at the trails on how do we want to develop that, like we're doing on Fisk Hill right now, the newest piece, and, adding those trails as they get done. So we're where we are as a community, we're on track to eventually get to 50 miles, but, we're still not quite there.
Yeah, and again, you gotta be a little, I'm gonna say careful, but just, you can have, 50 trails of a mile each, and it doesn't do anything for bikers. So maybe think bigger if you wanna think bigger, and rather than smaller pieces, get something larger.
So Ken, hey, Mike, did you have other questions?
Yeah. So I've been on the Northern Kingdom trails up in Vermont. You ever been there? For them?
I personally know, but I know of them, yes.
They have a lot of, for biking, they have a lot of biking trails that are set up almost like a motocross track. And with jumps and, so is that something that's part of the plan?
It's definitely something we would like to see. However, when we buy our open space properties, they have been purchased, with the exception of Fisk Hill, all of the others have been purchased with environmental protection as their primary goal. And in establishing the required conservation restriction, it restricts us as to how we can get into that kind of trail. Right now, we are in the process of constructing 5 miles of what's called downhill flow trails on the Riverlands property, and that is being very well received in the mountain bike community. We've got about 3 miles almost done, not quite done, and we've projected to do another 2 more miles on that property. But one of the challenges is working, with the Conservation Commission, with the CR holder, to making sure we're respecting the environmental values of the property. So getting much more into structures that are built, like the jumps and the hoops and all of that other stuff, those are outrightly prohibited on those properties. We can't build structures.
They tear it up pretty good.
Right, so, the Fisk Hill property, when we did purchase it, it had recreation as a primary purpose, so we just got that, and we're, kind of working our way through that. Obviously, there still needs to be a conservation restriction placed on that, and so we're not moving full force ahead because we want to be respectful of that process that still needs to happen there. But we would be looking, to the Fisk Hill property to see, what other interesting things we could do on the trails there. But again, it's not a huge property, and it does have some wetland challenges too on the property. So, we still, whether we can do it or not, we still have to go through the process of designing it, permitting it, and then ultimately constructing it. So it's something we want to try to do when we have the right property, but again, we've got to live within the rules of the game that are given to us, so, with the conservation restrictions.
I noticed, I've been out in South Lake Tahoe, and they have a lot of bike trails as well as wetland trails that, are 8 feet wide that go right straight through, over swamps and up hills and down hills, and then they have little parks that BMXers can use. And
Right. So, we're.
So could I jump in on that for a second?
Go ahead, Rob. I didn't know if you wanted me to bring up the bike park or not.
Yeah, so we're in the very early stages of looking at a bike park through ARPA funding. We're working with a group out in the central part of the country who actually designs these, and we're looking at some type of a bike playground park, similar to what you're talking about, that would not impact the conservation restrictions on the property. So we're working on site location for that. It looks like ARPA, we will have enough funding in the ARPA funding for that, and we wanted to put it obviously associated with a trail, so it could become like a family-type event.
The reason why I asked that is because that would be more of a destination, I think, with more bike trails and, I just see it like
That
if
was
you go
our
up there, you go up to the Northern Kingdom trails during the summertime, and they meander through the towns as well as right by a lot of.
That's a whole regional area.
It is, but
Right,
it's
it's
very.
more than just one community up there.
Right, but there's also the landowners, it's hotels, restaurants, they all work together to get the trail to go by their place, and,
So one of the good things that's been spun off from, I think, us as a community building these kind of trails is the International Mountain Bike IMBA.
yeah.
As, you know, there's the New England region IMBA, and the New England region has sanctioned a Central Mass South mountain bike chapter. And they have just started literally within the last 6 or 8 months or so. And they are holding their first competition meet here in Sturbridge on June 15th, Saturday. It's a one-day event. And they're anticipating about 150 to 200 riders coming in for that day. So we are bringing, the fruits of the labor are kind of starting to show more visibly that, we are attracting people into the town.
I think you're doing a great job,
Thank
My grandkids, when they come, I take them through the trails, and they love the Knife Edge Trail,
It's a good one.
yeah, I always have to keep my eyes on them.
Well, I guess I'll add to the pile. There's a bunch of ATV enthusiasts out there as well who would love some ATV trails. I realize it may rankle a few folks when you're thinking that versus bikes on there, but, there's still another segment of the population
Right,
that
but
could be
there,
served.
again, the conservation restrictions
Yeah.
prohibit motorized vehicles.
Yeah.
Does that include electric bikes then?
That's being debated as we speak. And that is a national debate across the whole country, is where do those new e-bikes fall? And as you know, there's actually 3 classes. And so there are 3 different power levels, basically.
Oh, okay.
And so, some of the consensus is around that the class 1 or 2, which are the lower powered ones, would be acceptable, but not the class 3. But I'll be honest with you, I haven't learned that much about them, so I could look at a bike and say, oh, that's a class 3 versus, that's a class 1, because it's all electric batteries.
Yeah, it's
So
all hidden too.
It's all hidden,
They do make life a lot easier though.
Okay?
I'm all done.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
So, I think we've kind of beat this one to death, so do I have a motion to approve Article 6?
I'll make
as
a
written?
motion that we recommend the town meeting approve the article as written.
Beautiful. And second is Ken. So Mike and Ken. Let me just put this in here. All right, any further questions or comments? All those in favor? 8-0. Right. So that gets Article 6 done. So Article 7 is the next one down the list. Once I copy this, Control C. That's Grand Trunk Trail Extension.
Yes, so on the Riverlands property, we did get a Mass Trails grant a couple years ago that allowed us to construct the parking lot and about 2,000 feet of the Grand Trunk Trail. However, because of the property lines, the master plan of the Grand Trunk Trail is to use that portion of Stallion Hill Road. In the future, one of the, coming down the pipeline projects will be rebuilding that section of Stallion Hill Road from Route 20, but maybe not from the Village Access Road to just past the village and putting in a shared use path that will be part of the Grand Trunk rail bed through town. So anyway, there is a triangular piece of property across the street from the main entrance to Old Sturbridge Village that we want to put the Grand Trunk Trail to bring it out to Stallion Hill Road, because we can't run it through the parking lot, as that's not allowed under the federal shared use path trail design standards. And so we are actually utilizing the old gas mobile products utility corridor that the pipeline is no longer in service, but the corridor is basically been graded, and all we got to do is just kind of dig out the topsoil and put the gravel, and we're at grade, and we're good to go. So a piece of that is on the village property. Robin, through the town administrator, we've met with Mr. Donahue at the village. He's presented our project to the trustees. They've approved it. We're in the final stages now of finalizing the actual easement document for signature. So here we are asking for the funding to build that approximately 275-foot section of trail.
For $550,000.
That's a different warrant article.
I just want to confirm, now that's Article 10. I think we have the wrong article. The OSB one is
I'm
Article
sorry, you
10.
said Riverland's Grand Trunk Trail. I'm sorry, am I looking?
Yeah, that's
So we
okay.
have
That's Article 10,
we have
I
two
think.
articles for Grand Trunk Trail. My
We
apologies.
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, so Tom just gave a great explanation of Article 10.
So that was Article 10.
That just gives,
Absolutely.
Where does this include $550,000?
That's why I said we're on the
no,
wrong
it
article.
doesn't, it's not that much.
Okay.
Did I just lose all my credibility?
There you go.
I'll let it go, that's it.
So that was, yeah, Article 10, then, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I didn't realize that you had that article as well. So, all right, so we can take up Article 10 then. We'll
Well,
go to,
it kind of fits into what you're doing with the overall trail there, so.
Right. Well, both this Article 10 and whatever the other article is related to constructing the Grand Trunk Trail through town, yeah.
So last year, we came up with $119,000 for engineering and permitting.
Yes.
The $550,000 plus the 33 for this. Is that the end of it, or is there, this just gets 600 feet and there's still 5 miles to go at that end?
So,
What's the overall cost of getting this Grand Trunk Railroad thing done?
I don't really have that figure for you right now. We can work it up. I can tell you that this, so Article 10 gets us to Stallion Hill Road. And like I said, we've got approximately 2,000 feet already
Gets us
built.
to there from where?
Well, so we, several years
They're my
back,
account. Yeah, I know they are.
we applied for and got a grant that was, the funding was matched by Community Preservation to do an overall conceptual feasibility study of completing all of the sections that are not complete of the Grand Trunk Trail. So we have that number, I just don't have it in front of me, okay? The sections, we've been picking away at the easier-to-do sections for the most part first, and we're kind of at the point where in the next couple of years, we need to obtain, because the section that's not built and not easily going to be built is the Grand Trunk Trail ran through the center, the heart of Old Sturbridge Village. The barn at the Freeman Farm sits square on the rail bed right of way. The trail is then some of that cart road that, if you know the village, connects from the meeting house, goes by the pottery shop to the barn, to the farmyard. But immediately behind the meeting shop is the rest of the rail bed, and then it follows out and out through their parking lot where the rail bed was excavated to use for gravel. And really now, if you are in their parking lot, in the back corner, there's all those telephone electric poles where they tied in their solar farm. Well, those poles are kind of right in the middle of the rail bed, right of way. So we need to come up with a way to get around Old Sturbridge Village, because obviously, putting that trail through the middle of the barn is just not going to work. And so we have a feasibility study, and it's now before the Land Use Committee here in the town, the department heads, to kind of take a look at it and say, okay, of the feasibility study gave several options, which one do we think is worth pursuing to continue the trail going forward? With that being said, we're looking at, part of that feasibility study says, somehow from Haynes Street at the intersection of River Road and the I-84 Exit 5 interchange, the other article, that 550,000, that brings the trail complete to that intersection all the way from Westville and Southbridge. So that's going to be approximately 3 miles. And we've already started initial discussions with Mass DOT to figure out how do we get it over the flyover, with them, to the back gate of Old Sturbridge Village. And then the feasibility, the part that we need to look at, is how do we get it somewhere from there to Stallion Hill Road? And what does that look like? And so we have a feasibility study that's, laid out some routes and put out some potential cost projections, but nothing has been finalized as to how we want to proceed. But again, but the plan does say once we get to Stallion Hill Road, then reconstructing Stallion Hill Road with a shared use path, down along Stallion Road to the Riverlands, gets us, to the Riverlands. On the western part of the Riverlands, there's a piece of property that is owned by the Belanger farm family that we're looking at trying to obtain a trail easement through, or we can build it on the Riverlands, but not on the rail bed. So there's still a couple missing pieces. Once we get to Holland Road, the trail is in from 46 Holland Road out to the Brimfield Dam, and from there, continuing west, it would be on Route 20 because we can't get around or through the lake, the flood control lake. And Brimfield at their Holland East Brimfield Road, the trail picks up from there, and they just installed a bridge over the Quinnebog River. So now in Brimfield, the trail is in place all the way to almost the center of Brimfield. And going from Westville into Southbridge, Southbridge currently has a $5 million grant to engineer, design, and install the trail literally through downtown Southbridge to the AO Rotary, as we used to know it, and the actual rail bed trail picks up from there as a trail. But the section from Westville along West Street, somewhere behind Hamilton Street, that is where they've got the 5. So they're currently working on their part. Like I said, Brimfield just installed the bridge, which kind of connects the whole eastern end of Brimfield together. And we're kind of in the middle putting our parts together.
So
It goes right through the registry of motor vehicles in Southbridge. That's where the rail line is.
The old rail bed did, yeah. I'm not sure, well, the rail grade itself is on the 131 side, and there was a problem getting around there through the Westville Dam, up and over the actual, spillway of the dam and all of that. So they're going to use this little portion of Marjorie Lane, and then already from Marjorie Lane down to the bottom along the south side of the river, where they've got already soccer fields, they already have a portion of the trail built there. So there's pieces, and we're slowly, connecting the gaps.
And I just don't want to see choppy gaps that are kind of useless. So if I go hiking tomorrow and I start at Westville, and I don't care about disturbance, I can take the trail, and it gets me from Westville to Farquhar Road.
Yeah.
Yes.
And last year, there was some funding to get some easement rights over at River Road. So this goes from Farquhar Road to Haynes Street, Route 15,
Yep.
through the areas that you got the easement rights last year.
What are we talking about?
Then you got to get,
Just changed again?
And then you talked about how do
And
you
then we
connect
gotta
up
talk
and
to Mass
everything.
Highway to get over the flyover.
So I
mean, we do have
just
alternate
can't walk,
routes.
put a crosswalk on Hain Street, walk over the bridge that's already there.
Right.
It may not be the actual rail bed, but there's a way to, and when you get to the village area and things are, here's where the rail bed is, and we want to put it on the old historical Grand Trunk, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. Hopefully there's a way to say, the path is over here a little bit, because it's easier to get rights, it's easier to do. It may not be the exact footage, but it's close enough to meet the historical
That's
intent.
kind of how
and
we're
keep
putting it together, yep.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
So that's, that kind of, in that, he just kind of talked about that last section, which is the River Road, which is the subject of,
Because once you get, I walk it all the time, and we actually was trying to figure out how it was gonna work, and we just couldn't figure it out. But once you get on River Road, you're gonna take a left somewhere, entry and go that way, right? But then you gotta go past the River Road, and people be walking in.
right, and
start
that's the
with,
subject of this
7.
other article,
and,
Okay.
is along River Road.
So we
Is
do
there-
7.
because
Okay, which one do you want to do?
10.
Okay, yeah, we kind of got off at 10,
And
and
we've combined two articles, we've had a lot of discussion about something. Jim, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I do,
Yeah.
because CPC is my account, and Article 10 for the connection from Hain Street along the rail bed, along River Road into Farquhar Road, the money you were talking about, the $119,000, was from the January this year special town meeting to get that all lined up legally and to get and none of that's happened yet. It's not been decided. The paperwork isn't signed.
no.
Can I clarify, those were donated, those two easements?
As far as I know, the law firm is working on that right now. The legal papers have not been signed yet. I talked to the assessor, I talked to Barbara, I've been following up on this. We don't have legal title to know that yet. It's not
I just want
documented.
to clarify that they were not purchased for $119,000.
Absolutely, that was to do all the legal work necessary to accept the gift or the easements and that, but that has not been finalized yet. So what we have.
They're all being drafted with the
They're all
attorneys,
being
yeah.
worked on, and it's gonna happen momentarily. I just wanted to point that out to the public and everyone else here. So, we're gonna vote on something to allow, unless we make it conditional, we're gonna vote to build a trail tonight on property that really technically we don't have all our i's dotted and t's crossed to do that yet.
I think what I'd be voting on is to authorize funding to proceed with that, assuming all the other pieces come
Contingent on
together.
everything else
I don't
happening.
necessarily have to put a contingency in the
Right.
motion, but just an
We
understanding
could do
that
it
no one's
without
going
it
to
in
spend the
place.
time and money if we don't
Excuse
have
me,
the land rights.
what was that again, Robin? Say that again?
We could not move forward without that being recorded. We would be in violation of the
We
law.
couldn't move forward of it, so what I was gonna say is we can approve this if we want, contingent on all that happening, spending the $550, and it's gonna happen, I think it's a sure thing. But that rail bed already, in case anyone hasn't looked at it, already has a line of poles going down it carrying electrical service from one end to the other, so
Not
someone's got,
quite, about halfway.
somebody's got an easement already.
So we are currently have an engineering firm, and matter of fact, Tuesday, they filed the application, a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission so that we can build the trail. We currently have a grant and funding by CPC. The engineering firm is currently working diligently with a deadline of June 30th, because that's when the Mass Trail Grant expires. The money has to be spent by June 30th. They are just Tuesday filed the notice of intent so we can construct that approximate 2,000-foot section from Farquhar Road out to Hain Street, just behind where the old Hebert's Candy Mansion.
As soon as the private parties that own that land give us written permission and tie that up legally so we can build on it. Because right now, that paperwork has not been executed, and that property is owned by two private individuals.
We do have letters from, you are right that the legal documents have not been recorded. But we do have letters from the individuals indicating the donation of those lands. Those were put forward through town meeting and approved from the town side. So I just want to be clear, yes, you are correct. We have not recorded the deeds,
And-
but we do have, we're well into the process, just so people understand that.
And that's why I was bringing it up, just to know that I'm sure the people that are gonna do it are gonna approve it, but it hasn't been done yet. And that's why I looked into it, because this was coming up. I said, wait a minute, this sounds familiar. So I did inquire.
Yeah.
And it was only recently that we
At the
were
last
asking
special
permission
town meeting,
to get
the town
to get
voted
real
to
estate
accept the easement. That's
approval to
correct.
put it on their property.
Yep.
That's all.
And that document just has not yet been recorded.
It's, right. It's still in the hands of, who's it, KP Law? Who's our
Yes.
legal people, yeah.
Yes.
It hasn't been done yet, so.
So you want to do Article 10?
Yes.
Did you want to do the motion, Jim, or? did you-
Which one are we talking about?
10, Article 10, the $33,000.
Oh, I'll make a motion that we recommend to town meeting, Article 10 is written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mike. And Mike Hager, actually. There's another Mike over there, I keep forgetting. So, any further questions or comments on this article? All those in favor? And it's 8-0. All right, so I did want to note here, I forgot to do this before we started voting on this, the file, the active file we're using tonight with the warrant tonight, 2024 ATM warrant, version 02, 2024-0418. Just for the record on that. Okay.
And I've lost my place,
wanna
but
go
I
back
wanted
to
to.
Article
recommend-
7.
Article 7, this is for the 550?
This is the 550.
Okay, I want to,
Yeah, I want to understand this more, too.
I'll make a motion, I'll recommend to town meeting that we approve the article as written, contingent on the execution of the paperwork that we voted on at the special town meeting in January, making sure that we have all the contingencies have been met that were
So-
approved previous. So,
I have a couple questions. Where's, maybe it's available, where's the grand plan for this? You have it at the top of your head, you know exactly what you're talking about. You were talking about roads and trails, and I'm like, yeah, really?
approval of the
But is there a
conditions
plan, a regular, a plan
So,
that we can?
there are currently brochures available, there may be some downstairs, I just don't know.
For this new one?
For the Grand Trunk Trail in Sturbridge. And as we speak, last night, the STA approved the reprinting, because that original brochure was done about 15 years ago.
Right.
And obviously, we needed to update it, because parts have been finished. We are in the process, we're gotten a price from a printing company to print a new brochure. So we will have that, that shows the route in town and what parts are done, what parts are on road, and what parts are, still being proposed and
Or
worked on.
planned
Yeah,
on.
a kind of, very one-page visual plan. But if you want to read the feasibility study of the parts that aren't done, I can provide that to you. I don't know that we have it posted on any of our websites or not, I'll be honest with you.
Curious.
Because I don't do that, so I don't know if it got posted, but we have copies. I can give you an electronic copy, no problem.
Because practically, when you go from Westville and you get to Farquhar, that's 2 miles.
A little over 2 miles.
I know,
yeah.
I walk, it's great trail. But then you get there, and I don't know, am I going to, or anybody gonna go now across the street and walk another 3 miles and then come back and walk another? So where's the real access to the new trail? 'Cause there's no parking there enough, unless
So this article that you just approved,
there's a parking lot
there includes the construction of a 10-car parking lot
and cars.
on the 9 River Road parcel. The actual parking lot location will be basically across the street from the driveway to the Pine Acres campground.
Okay.
Okay?
And then it'll lead all the way to, you say, South
Right,
Sturbridge
and
Village, like
so,
down there?
right, and so going towards
I'm gonna read
Southbridge,
the motion.
the next parking lot would be at the west entrance to the park.
Yep.
At Westville, and then there's the small parking lot at the actual dam office.
Okay.
Let's see, if
We can get the details, of, you know.
So there is no second.
Well, because I haven't had a chance yet, because we took off discussing before we got anywhere.
Ed, can I just clarify, Article 10 is the OSV one. Article 7 are the two that Jim was referencing, but all are being drafted right now by Jonathan Eichman, all three of them. But the ones specifically that Jim was referencing is Article 7 one. So if you're going to put the contingency, be sure you have it on the
That's where I
right.
was gonna read it. Article 7's motion is to approve as
Yeah.
written, contingent to the conditions of Article 55,
Okay.
approved at the January 22nd, 2024 special town meeting. That's
Okay, I just
Tim's
wanted to be
motion.
sure.
I will second.
Okay. So here's what I think, I don't know, while I understand the contingency, you don't have any issue with it, I'm not so sure it's needed, right? Because I think we have internal controls that says we're not gonna go out and spend $500,000 to put trails on property we don't have or we can't connect to over there. So I think there should be enough financial controls between Trails Committee, Robin, Barbara, and others to.
You
to not
say
allow us
that,
to-
but we've already done that. We purchased the land on Fisk Hill Road without having any of the actual, no, not the cost, the actual legal
Right.
boundaries defined for that. So it has happened in the past. It is possible to happen, and so.
But I won't certainly vote against the motion because that contingency is in there. So I just want to make sure we're certain we've got the motion worded properly and don't want to take this up next week to make sure that the wording in the motion is proper. You say the conditions in that, I don't know that Article 55 of that thing has conditions. I think it has an action that says we're going to go out and purchase, obtain the easements and do whatever else. So,
It includes the engineering and everything else. It's pretty detailed. I just switched to something else, but
We don't know what the total cost is, this is just,
it's $119,000.
we're talking about the Article 7.
That's 550.
But that's just for part of it, not the whole.
No, that's for
That's just for the
construction
stretch.
of the trail. Everything else has been
Right,
paid
the
for leading up to
easements
construction.
themselves have no cost. The
Yeah, it's-
easements
it's a
themselves
donation,
have
there's no
no cost. I
cost.
just want to be clear.
Land. But what this 550 is for is specifically, once the other stuff is all approved, that's when we stick a shovel in the ground and start building the trails.
That's right.
That's strictly construction costs.
And hopefully it'll be less than the 550 because we've
And you
applied
have the
for a
potential
grant.
for the grant.
Right, we've applied for a grant.
But
But if we don't get
119
it, this allows us to move
oh, you
forward.
know what?
The 119 in January is to do all the preliminary stuff, so that the next step was to stick a shovel in the ground.
That's right.
And that's what the 550 is.
And our goal is to be there on June 30th.
And you can't do
on what I hear.
the other end if you only need 100,000 because the article limits the beginning and end points where you can spend the money.
Right. Yep.
And I made my motion tonight because this is pending, and from everything I've heard, this paperwork, Robin can correct me if I'm wrong, could happen tomorrow. It might well be done tomorrow, so let's get this over with, vote on it, because we know it's gonna happen, but I don't wanna say approve it as written without a condition, because it could change, something could happen, who knows? But until the signed paperwork is in our hands, I don't, it's-
I understand where you're going, so I guess this is a unique motion that we're making here. We usually don't put contingencies in here. And while it may be clear to us sitting here tonight what the intent of this is, I want to make sure the motion's worded properly, legally, and without ambiguity, that someone in the end is saying, well, are these conditions met, yes or no? Is
Next
this-
Thursday, if Robin tells us that they have all their i's dotted and that's all signed, we can bring it up again for reconsideration and change the motion back to the original motion. Take away the contingency.
And likewise, if someone looks at this during the week and says, hey, it should have been worded this way, and suggests a different form of motion that give you the same intent, we can modify
We can
it.
do that at town meeting, yeah.
We can do whatever, we can change it. I mean, we still have at least 2 more meetings, maybe 3.
Yeah, so why don't you just hold off on this article, because Robin expects that it's going to be filed, and I think it's going to be a moot point.
Expects when?
Momentarily.
Prior to town meeting, but let her look into it instead of trying to word something that might not be necessary.
It might not even be necessary, yes.
Are you okay?
I'm okay with it if you want to.
With
So what's the decision?
Then you will.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Has it been seconded?
Yeah, I seconded it, so I
you gotta do
withdraw
that
my
first.
second.
And I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
All right, so Article 10 is done. We actually did 7, right?
That was 7.
There was 7.
We did 10.
No, we did 10, I'm sorry, yeah.
You asked us
I
to do
filled it in,
7.
but I didn't fill it in here.
That's fine.
Gotta write this down so I keep it straight.
All right, so,
Kevin, before you move on,
yeah,
could you just give me what the vote was on Article 6? I missed it.
Article 6?
8-0.
Yeah.
0. Yeah.
8-0?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
All right.
Article 6 has been done.
So we haven't done 7, but we've done 10. All right. So we've got the betterment article, which is Article 18, and that's the last thing I think, Tom, you're here for,
I
right?
believe so, yep. But I'm having fun, so, you know.
Camper out back.
All right, so in the betterment, there's a miscellaneous trail maintenance improvement items for $635 and a dual axle trailer for $3659. So I'm just curious, why $635 for maintenance when you got $66,000 coming from another article?
The
Article 18.
intricacies of my understanding of the community preservation funding
Yeah,
sources is that
it doesn't fall under the rules,
it
basically?
doesn't fall under the rules, and we have 197 Lead Mine Road, where the Lead Mine and Heinz Farm parking lot is.
Huh?
That is not on the Lead Mine Mountain property. That is not on the Heinz Farm property. But that is on Town of Sturbridge property controlled by the Conservation Commission. So if we need to, so part of the Pond Loop Trail is not under community preservation funding. So if we want to buy gravel or fix a sign there,
It has to come from somewhere
technically,
else.
we be improperly spending community preservation funding, because we didn't ask for to do it on that particular property. Okay?
Yep,
So the 635 covers those, and there's that one there. There's also 127A Lead Mine Road, where we have a portion of the Lead Mine Trail and the Cow Style Trail. So it's not big stuff, but it's the intricacies of the funding laws we have to deal with.
I got you, yeah, the technicalities, yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then the dual axle trailer.
Yeah, so the dual axle trailer. So, you know, as we've discussed earlier, the length of miles, the length of trails, as we get further into the woods, the efficiencies of hauling in a quarter a yard of gravel on the back of our RTV gets time consuming, just the driving it out there, dumping it and cycling it back. So the committee would really like to increase our efficiencies by hauling, this trailer would be towable by the RTV, and we could put a bucket in the RTV, and actually in this trailer, we can put 2 buckets of gravel. And so now in one trip, we're hauling out 3 buckets of gravel versus 1. So it's just a way of increasing our volunteer efficiency of getting these, the more remote. The Lead Mine Trail alone is, when complete, will be close to 5 miles long. And right now, we're limited to how far down on those trails we can drive dump trucks with gravel on, okay? And so from that point, you know, to get it to the other end, we've got to shuttle it using the RTVs. And so we've kind of done the close to the pile work.
Yeah.
But now as we get out, you know, we all sit there and say, you know, we got volunteers waiting to rake and spread it, but if it's a 20-minute cycle period, you know, and you only got them for 3 hours, that's not a lot of gravel that gets
Right.
brought out and spread. So it's an efficiency. It's to increase our efficiency in moving forward on trail construction and maintenance.
I just have a stupid question, man. So when you say bucket, you're not talking like the 5-gallon Home Depot bucket and tractor
No,
3 of those
so
up there, it's a
if
bigger
you
thing, right?
remember, we purchased a couple years ago, we purchased the John Deere 1025, which is a 25-horse tractor with a bucket loader, and that bucket is a quarter-yard
gotcha.
size, and that's what we use. In the winter, it's used, that's the what you see that cleans the sidewalks. It's a multi-purpose, vehicle. But, right now, it's actually at the trail sets available, for us to build trails.
Yep, nope, got you now. Now I completely got
Okay.
a picture.
Is that a dump trailer?
Pardon?
Is that a dump trailer or just a regular two-axle trailer?
I think there was a picture provided. It's actually got 4 tires.
No. I understand. Oh, yeah, it is a dump trailer.
Right, it's a dump trailer. It will dump, yes. Yep.
I didn't have a picture of a dump trailer.
Yeah. The RTVs have, they're street legal, so we have all of the needed wiring and.
Oh, I'm good.
Yep,
I was gonna say, just get a dump trailer.
yeah, no, it is a dump trailer, yep.
Okay.
You hold it there, but now you gotta take it out one shift at a time, kind of cuts down on his productivities.
So we gotta back it in, because otherwise they would dump it and you have no way to turn around.
All right. So then, for Article 18, those are the last two really
Right, there were two
substantial
requests, yep.
topics in there. We've covered every other one that isn't like an annual expense. Can I just see one thing? There's only one that sticks out to me in there. Maybe Barbara can answer it if it is a problem. So why the huge increase in Slack expenses? That's on you, Tom, but.
On Slack.
Yeah, the Sturbridge Lake something, Great Ponds Weed and Safety Program.
That's not
Yeah, that's not
me.
Tom.
No, I know it's not him, but the next thing we would do is take up Article 18, because we've thought we've hit everybody. But that one is a huge increase from $6,000 last year to $20,000 this year. So what's the thinking behind that?
If you recall, a woman from the Lakes Association came in. Barbara probably has the details on that, on the testing.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yep. This was a request that came actually from the Lakes Association.
Yeah, so,
Wasn't it South Pond?
each year, so SLAC represents the different lakes in town. It is, and the cost primarily to Big Alum, Cedar, and South Pond, all of those lakes have public access, but it's the residents that are basically footing the bill for the treatment of those lakes. And so they had come forward this year asking if town would be willing to increase the funding to help them defray some of the costs. So give me 1 second just to get some information for you.
Second item down on Article 18. He's missing a decimal point.
So the information that they brought forward was that these are great ponds which are owned by the people of the Commonwealth for the use and benefit of all residents. The lake associations have been solely taking the lead in monitoring and treating the lakes, and costs have significantly increased. And then, as I said, it applies primarily to 3 of the lakes, Big Alum, Cedar Lake, and South Pond, all of which have public access for boating, and 2 have public beaches for swimming.
They have
So-
public access from public roads?
They what?
Do they have public access from public roads? I know that
I
some,
don't know, but they have public
Well,
access
some like
boating,
yeah.
for boating and public beaches for swimming.
So Big
And so
Alum
they
does.
requested,
I know
they requested an increase in funding,
Park Road
which
Extension.
will not come anywhere near covering the costs of what they,
yeah,
you know.
but you're not
what they
answering my
spend each
question.
year.
I mean, I've
Okay.
been hearing lots of complaints about these people living around the lake who are on private roads who want to close the roads off. If the public access is off of these
So-
private roads and they won't let us in,
So-
that's a problem.
So let me be clear, there are clear regulations on closing private roads. If those groups choose to close private roads, they can no longer have potholes filled, they can no longer be plowed. There is no road that has truly been closed. One is being dead-ended with access only from opposite directions, so it doesn't go through. But there is no private road that the town pays 1 penny of plowing or potholes on that the public does not have a right to drive on.
So what I'm asking is for these roads that are now going to be, if they're not going to be closed, they're going to, people who used to travel them will be seriously inconvenienced. Are those where the public access to these ponds are?
Only one of those roads is having that type of a discussion right now, and it's a gate at one end, so they can drive up to one end, or they can come from the other direction and come in. But that is one particular road only.
So that's not answering my question. Is that where the
They can
public?
still get to the pond, they would still be able to get to the lake.
South Pond does have public access from a public road.
Right. South Pond has public access. Cedar Lake has public access.
Cedar Lake.
Not the best. And Big Alum does have a public boat ramp put in by the state. It's on the south end of the lake near the turnpike. And that's off of, I think, Clark Road Extension.
And those are all accessible.
So for the particular public access, the boat ramps that exist are all accessible from town roads.
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
Can I just ask Tom a question? You said South Pond has access. In Sturbridge?
No,
It's in Brookfield.
it's in Brookfield, my understanding, yeah.
I lived on South Pond.
Right.
I thought so.
But it does, again, it still has that public access from a public road.
Okay.
And Barbara, it didn't sound like she provided a number, but the cost of increase, the town is picking up a larger dollar amount than it has in the past. But the lake associations, the homeowners along there are picking up their share. It sounded like all of a sudden we're picking up a bigger piece and they're picking up less, right?
Absolutely not. The amount of money that they spend each year is a large amount. I don't have that information with me tonight, but no, they're still paying a lot more.
Gotcha. The
This
specific,
doesn't supplant their cost.
yeah, I don't need the specific dollar amount to move forward.
Okay, so, I mean, then that would close down every one of these things.
So you want me, the number I'm looking at is 207,216?
Yeah, so but it's an article, right? So you're just gonna,
So how about, I'll make a motion that we recommend town meeting approve Article 18 as written.
okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Jim Waddick. Any further questions? All those in favor? 8-0. Okay, so good. That gets that.
I'm done.
You are done, so thank you very much for your time and your patience.
Thank you.
No problem.
So it is more.
The only other one I consider us getting done tonight, everything else will carry over, so we can do the other things that are on here, is the town budget, because with tonight's votes, at least according to my records, we voted every line item in the budget. So we could actually vote the town budget article.
So we always say for that one, approve as written, although it really just kind of refers to the number in the end, right?
Right. Wow, geez, I didn't catch that. No, it's select board is all capital in there, I'm changing that.
Building,
Article 14, sorry. All it is really saying that we're going to fix the budget of the town based on what you see in the line item budget. So, I mean, since we're done with the line item budget, I just figured this is the time to just put the icing on the cake.
Just looking for the article number here.
It is 14.
14.
On page
I always
9.
go by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there we go.
The builder inspector and stuff like that, is that, we didn't vote on that yet.
I thought I went through everything, and I have,
We did the building inspector, did we? Did we
Yeah, we
vote on
did
that?
that week one.
yeah, they're all done. Everything, I have,
Cool, because I thought I had it good, then, fine.
okay. All right,
Yesterday was his last day, so it's going to be tough to talk to him.
okay.
Great.
So do I have a motion to approve Article 14, which is the town budget?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, that was Mike McGlone, right?
Yes.
Just
Amen.
going off the vote from you. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
That MCP got you there. So the two newest people on that one. Okay. Hearing, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's 8-0. Great.
You guys will get the phone calls.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. All right, so everything else is getting moved to next week, including the zoning bylaw articles, because we're getting late.
Could we just do a few more articles, just very quickly, that I think really will not have any conversation?
I'm going to move to the special town meeting, if that's the two you're talking about.
It isn't, but I have Jean on standby because she cannot attend next week. I want to just, if we could just go the amendment of the zoning articles that are all just typographical and,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna recommend the same thing. There's 4 or 5 articles, they're all the same. There's no changes in zoning, it's just part of the cleanup effort to make sure the language complies with the intent. And when we did the codification, they went through a cleanup effort. There were a couple things that kind of got mixed along the way. So this is housekeeping. It's not changing intent. It's not changing interpretation. It's just cleaning up things as part of that codification process.
The verbiage, yeah.
Doesn't change the meaning of anything that's in
Doesn't
it.
change meeting interpretation or anything else.
Right.
Okay.
So
So if we're going to keep going with it.
Articles
okay.
46 to 42, so maybe you
No,
could
it's
just make a motion for
46 you
all
said,
of that.
right?
36, yeah.
Yeah, starting with 36.
So let me do it this way. I'll make a motion that we recommend town meeting approve articles 36, 37, 38, 39,
Where is it?
40, 41, and 42 as written.
I'll second that.
So you're going to have to wait for me to do the technical details.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent an hour reading them all this afternoon.
Oh, I already did.
I'm messing with my accounting system, so I have to get it all straightened out. All right, so that's Articles 36 through 42, that's what I heard. And it's Mike and Jim.
Yep.
All right, to approve is written. All right, any other questions or comments on those set of articles? All those in favor? It's 8-0. All right.
Okay, so before you go to the special, could you also approve the Article 4, which is the debt service for community preservation?
Debt service for community preservation.
Oh, yeah.
That's Article 4. Jim?
I'll make a motion. Recommend to town meeting that we approve Article 4, Community Preservation Debt Service as presented, or as.
As written. Yep.
Okay.
Second, since someone else jumped in.
Yeah, Article 4.
Don't have to read the full amounts.
No, Jim and Mike. I do have a question after all this is said and done. There's a giant chunk of money, in the neighborhood of, I don't know, $690,000. Is that roughly coming out of the CPC undesignated fund balance?
Big chunk.
Does that sound like the
Are you
right
talking
total?
about the total?
Yeah,
Um,
884,000.
884,600.
I was trying to do it in my head, yeah.
But now, mind you, the 550, it says a possible, 400,000 grant? So take off 400 from that, I guess, if,
Well, no, you wouldn't, you can't.
no,
do that.
I just, so 884,600 are all of the articles.
So we're just leaving slightly,
No, because you're looking at last year's book, which doesn't include any of the revenue taken in during fiscal '24.
right,
So I still have to update the document, but based on the current balances and what we've taken in for estimates, it should leave undesignated at about 1.2, almost 1.3 million.
even after all this expense.
Yep,
Okay, good.
Oh, it'll still be, okay.
All right. So I have a first and a second on Article 4 to approve it as written. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's 8-0.
okay, hold on, don't go yet. All right, then the revolving funds,
That was 4, right?
Yeah?
we didn't vote that one yet.
No, we have not. I just have to find it.
It's Article 27.
This is the caps.
Well,
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Why does the senior center need $50,000 cap?
So they're going to be doing a new meals program that basically is going to take in additional funding, which is going to need the cap to be raised in order for her to implement that program.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Any other questions related to Article 27?
I'll make a motion. that We recommend the town meeting Article 27 as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, Mike. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? 8-0.
And then the article for transferring money into the stabilization fund,
I'm not sure I want to take that up yet.
okay. If you're going to need information on it, you need to give me a heads up of what you're going to need.
Well, you know what, maybe I can get my question answered. So, the Board of Selectmen had a meeting Monday night, supposedly? Is that true?
To approve a liquor license, a one-day liquor license.
Okay, well, I mean, it wasn't anywhere where anyone could see it, so I don't know what else was discussed.
It was posted, it was posted.
It was posted, but it wasn't visible. You couldn't, you would have had, I guess it was in the back room. It wasn't on television anywhere. People were looking for it. And you couldn't
No, it
see
was in the Minuteman room. It was a 5-minute meeting because we had a neighborhood meeting in the Veterans Hall.
Okay, so that's the only thing that was discussed.
Right, that's what it was.
That was the only thing that was discussed.
There was an agenda that said that was the only thing they were going to discuss.
It
Yes,
hasn't
and
stopped
that's
them.
all that was discussed.
So, okay, have there been any discussions on the Stallion Hill Water project since our vote with the Board of Selectmen?
No,
I-
there hasn't been any selectmen's meetings.
Not
That was
since
the
Monday night.
last one, right, that I was at.
So they waited.
April 6th meeting.
When's the next meeting, I'm sorry?
Excuse me, the April 19th meeting, the April 20th meeting, whatever meeting they publicly discussed it was the last discussion of it.
So do you plan to bring it up with them again at a future meeting?
They voted to place.
Right, so normally, once the finance committee goes through everything, normally what I will do is I will prepare for Robin to take to the board just what any differences that exist between the Board of Selectmen
Okay.
and the finance committee, but I don't do that until you're done with your deliberations.
Okay, I'd like you to
So
do that
they
beforehand.
will be made aware that you guys have a substitute motion, or that you changed the,
Well, it's our
what your
motion.
motion
We
is.
did a
But,
last
right,
week,
they'll be made aware of that.
So I guess I don't understand the link between these, not only between that article and this putting $209,000 in the stabilization funds.
Isn't this the
And the
one-
actions by the Board of Selectmen versus the recommendations that we would make as a Finance Committee.
Because if they were to come back with a substitute motion, I might change all of the funding of this Stallion Hill thing based on some of these things. So that money that would be going to the stabilization fund might go to fund Stallion Hill water tank.
All right, well then, let's not get into this tonight because
Yeah, right.
it's greater than I can do at this point.
And we could end up.
Maybe you could just give me some information so that I can prepare for next week,
Okay.
off just later, okay?
And
All right.
it's entirely possible, given timing, that we wrap up our discussions, because we got to get this to print, and then the selectmen could take up something different after that, and we've already made our recommendations here.
That is true.
And then it just publicly gets noticed on the floor of town meeting.
All right, well, let me think about it. Okay.
Should we knock off the STM?
Yes. That's where we're going next.
Special town meeting?
So for the special town meeting, I just want to make, we actually are noting that it's 2024 STM warrant version 2, 2024-04-25 for the file name. All right, so the first one is the snow and ice deficit, which actually has a number associated with it now.
Do you have a number?
Article 56.
So someone will need to read the suggested motion.
All right, that the town vote to transfer the sum of $27,692 and $00100 from free cash for the purpose of funding snow and ice deficit removal account for fiscal year 2024.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
I got a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked at the 23, 24, and 25 budget for this, and it's 70,000, 70,000, 70,000. And now we're short 27,000, which is 38%.
We intentionally underfund this every year because it's allowed by the Commonwealth for us to underfund this and make it up at the end.
Yeah, but.
So we short budget it all the
I know it's
time.
allowed, but is that good practice? Why we just keep doing 70,000 every year when we know it's not real?
Because they
So
allow
we
us to do that, so
actually-
we keep our money.
We increase the salaries line by a percentage every year. And we actually, in this year's budget, I did recommend that it is moving forward to increase, I believe it's the purchase of service. Give me one sec. So D30,
So Barbara, part of the reason we underfund this versus overfund is that if you want to if you pick a number and you come up short, we're allowed to deficit spend and make it up the way we're doing here to cover our costs. If we, let's just go, if we
Over budget.
over budget, if we can't, and we try to cut the budget back in the future year, then we kind of give up that ability to deficit spend, right?
correct. So this year, we have increased the supplies line from $100,000 to $110,000. We are looking at costs. If you look back, there was a year not too long ago where we actually did not have an overage. So I am cautious with this. But yes, this is the one account under Mass General Law that you are allowed to deficit spend.
So we
And
pick a number
we
of our
have,
budget.
we have for years funded the deficit through free cash at the end, at the special town meeting,
Right.
in June.
GASB versus FASB. That's the difference.
Okay.
Government Accounting Standards Board, not Financial Accounting Standards Board. Government's public, the finance FASB is private. You got to think like the office holder you are.
No, I understand. But then we say take it out of free cash, and one of the philosophies of free cash is don't use your free cash to fund operations. It should be for emergencies, and
Yeah, but
so we keep going back to the same thing.
This is not a number you can actually project, because in some years, if you get, 15 feet of snow over 16 storms, you might end up with a $400,000 deficit here, if not higher. And in other years, like Barbara said, we didn't even spend what we allocated, because we didn't get any snow. You take a.
And you have to be really careful of that. You have to be really careful if you over budget it.
It's a best faith estimate without trying to leave us with, six-figure deficits every year. I mean, $27,000 is a pretty good, target.
Well, it's 38% off, but that's right. That's too mild winter too, I think.
Well, there was a lot of
If I could, Kevin, if I could just point out something to Ken, one of the reasons this is an expensive year, even though we didn't have large amounts of snowfall, the snow and sleet and freezes that we had, many of them hit on Sundays. So we have overtime costs with that. It is expensive. And when you have these storms that are not heavy snow, but are actually a little warmer and on the freeze line, you use a lot more material.
Yeah, a lot more salt.
That's fair.
So it really goes back to how we manage what's in the base budget and the ability to meet those shortfalls. When we have a highly unpredictable thing. We try to put enough money in the budget to cover everything.
What's the next one, Kevin?
We put a big number in there, and then you can't ever cut that back down, because you give up the, what if I cut it too much, and now I overspend because of the weather. So there's a competing set of rules.
I think we're good. I think we get the understanding. All right, so I have a first and a second on Article 56 for snow and ice removal deficit. Any further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? 7-1-0. Okay.
Kevin,
Yes.
2.
Oh, 7-2, I missed it, I'm sorry.
So Mike, you're opposed as well?
Yeah.
Who were the two opposed?
Ken and Mike McGlone.
I'm sorry, what was the vote, 620?
7-2-0.
No, it's 620.
Oh, wait, yeah, what am I saying? I got
AT and
because I cut and
MM
pasted.
opposed.
Yes, it is 6.
Getting late.
Yeah, we're getting.
Well, I cut and pasted, yeah, that was a bad thing on my part. All right, next one, unpaid bills previous year, that the town vote to transfer the sum of $54.18 from free cash for purpose of paying unpaid bills from a prior fiscal year. And what is Quill Claim Forms? It's just,
Quill is a supplies company, and it was for claim forms for billing. Ambulance billing claim forms.
all right, Ken, I'm gonna, ambulance billing claim forms, adds a little more light to it.
So you'll make the motion?
Yes. Do I have a second for the $54.18?
Second.
Jim Warnick. All right, any other questions or comments to this one? I'm gonna pay attention now. All those in favor? Opposed, so it's 8-0.
I just want to add something just for clarification. Spending money from free cash to budget for an operating budget such as funding police officers or funding something that is normal operational costs from free cash is absolutely something that we would never do. Funding from free cash for a snow and ice deficit is not the same thing, and I just want to be clear that it is fiscally responsible to use free cash to fund a snow and ice deficit.
All right, so meeting minutes, we don't have any. New business, anyone got any items they need to add to next week's agenda, other than the movement?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
So I will be, I am borrowing for the senior center project, and I will have the results of that, that bond sale So I would like to update you guys with where we ended up with for bids, as well as what was received from S&P for our bond rating for the sale. So if I can do that at the next meeting, I would appreciate it.
Sure. I'm just trying to think of how to put it in there. Bond updates, bond sale updates?
Sure.
Okay.
You might want to reference senior center.
Oh, rating update?
And, yes, so results of bond sale and rating update.
Okay. We'll add that. All right, so appointee status, as you know, we had 2 appointees named when the whole process began, and you can see one has successfully joined us and participated, and the second one has not to this point in time. And I have talked with the moderator, and she has in turn spoken with the person she appointed, and he's supposed to be sworn in tomorrow and be here for our next meeting. So, well, what I was worried about is I was going to have to schedule, not this meeting coming up, but the meeting after, which will be May 9th. We would have had to take a vote to vacate the appointment. So I think that's going to offset having to vacate the appointment. So I just figured I'd let you know that with the appointee status.
Just quick, just to summarize, all of the Community Preservation Committee, all of those have been forwarded to next week?
No. We've done A, B, E, G, I, K, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W tonight. So what's going next week would be C, D, F, H, because we didn't vote the 550, I, L, M, N, O.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And I know that I've already added to reserve fund, a reserve fund transfer budget item for next week, too.
No.
All right. Anything else? Could I entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:46?
So moved.
Kathy and Mike seconds, Mike McGlone. Any further comments? All those in favor? Oh, that's 8-0.
I wonder who the Patriots drafted.